Good. That's what we'd like to hear. All right. If everybody's ready, I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Village of Skokie Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals is created by the statutes of the state of Illinois and by the ordinances of the Village of Skokie for the purpose of granting proper case relief from the strict terms of our zoning ordinances. The decision of this board to either grant or deny relief will be based upon the evidence presented to it and how that evidence is related to the standards for granting relief. All persons who have an interest in a case, either as a petitioner or as a member of the public, either supporting or opposing the petition, or as an independent witness, will be given a chance to speak on the record and express his or her points of view. The Zoning Board of Appeals is not a court of law, and therefore we do not follow the strict rules of evidence. However, this hearing will be conducted in such a manner as to hear only competent evidence or statements. Question as to procedure, interpretation, and of the admissibility of statements or evidence will be ruled upon by Corporation Counsel Tyler Kobilski, and his legal decisions will be binding upon this board. Certain cases require covenant running with the land. This will be prepared and recorded by the Village of Skokie Legal Department, and this is done at the petitioner's expense. Whether or not a covenant is required is a determination to be made by Corporation Counsel at the conclusion of each individual case. If a covenant running with the land is required, it cannot or will not be prepared until our court reporter has returned to the Zoning Board of Appeals a transcript of these proceedings. The Village of Skokie will notify each petitioner when a covenant has been prepared and is ready for signature. No building permits can be applied for or issued until a covenant is signed by the petitioner. Should a petition for variation be denied, or should a covenant not be required, the Board of Trustees will authorize a refund of any required fees. Should it be necessary for the petitioner to request a continuance due to lack of preparation, a case continuation fee of 1/2 of the original application fee is due prior to the rehearing date. This request must be made before any testimony begins. All petitioners must receive a vote of the majority of the zoning board present in order to decide any matters under consideration. Our full complement is normally 9 members. However, tonight's complement is 8 members, making 5 votes necessary to make a determination on a petition. Okay, tonight we have 2 cases. We have 2018-08Z, 7321 Ridgeway Avenue, and 2018-09Z, 8930 to 8950 Grosse Pointe Road. Now, as Corporation Counsel in both these cases, has the proper notice been served and notarized?
Notice is proper and correct.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm sure everybody's had a chance to look at their copious packet tonight, in which includes our meeting minutes from our last meeting of September 5th, which included 2018-07Z, 9441 Kenneth Avenue. If everybody's had a chance to review it, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Okay, Commissioner Franklin, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Gerstner, all in favor, voice vote, please.
Aye.
Okay, anybody not in favor? No, thank you, Marlene. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we will go on to hearing the first case. Before I do it, we do this for the sake of expediency. Anybody who's planning on coming up to the podium and testifying tonight, please stand up. That way I can swear you in en masse. Okay, raise your right hand, please.
1 second.
Yes, sir.
Yes, can you please stand up?
Okay, thank you. Do you affirm that the testimony you are about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge or belief? Please answer in the affirmative.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, anybody not answering in the affirmative? Okay, please be seated, except for perhaps the petitioners or whoever's representing the petitioner at this point. If you want to come on up to the podium, we will go ahead and move forward with the first case tonight will be the 09Z. So 2018-09C, whoever is representing the petitioner, please move up to the podium. And while you're doing that, Commissioner Gersner is representing this case tonight. So Alan, go ahead and take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2018-09Z, 8930 to 8950 Grosse Point Road. Stover Partners, number 2 LP, requests a variation in order to continue to operate an electronic answering service collection or telemarketing agency at 8950 Grosse Point Road, Suites 400 and 600, and other uses on the subject site while providing 167 proposed off-street motor vehicle parking spaces, a 13-foot one-way south drive aisle and a 16-foot 6-inch aisle with, rather than the minimum 222, rather than the minimum street motor vehicle, 14-foot minimum one-way drive aisle and a 17-foot minimum aisle width as required by section 118-218, 118-212, subsection C1, B1, and 118-212, subsection A1F of the zoning chapter of the Skokie Village Code in a B2 commercial district. The filing. Before I read the petitioner statement, since the staff report is, if I read the entire staff report, it would be here for a week. It is available online. If anybody is interested in it, they can take a look at skokie.org under the zoning, tonight's zoning board. The whole packet is online. I'll read the petitioner's statement. Petitioner submits the proposed findings of fact pursuant to Article 1, Section 118-7, subsection B3. Number 1, there is a limitation on the use of the property due to physical, topographical, and geologic features. Finding the physical characteristics of the property limit the number of parking spaces available. Petitioner recently restricted the parking lot to achieve the maximum number of parking spaces at the property. 173 spaces, 6 handicap equal 167. Without a variance, there can be no reasonable use of the property. Findings: prior to Unifin Inc., moving into the 8950 building, the far west suite of the 8950 building was vacant for many years, and despite continuous leasing efforts, had no viable long-term tenants. The request is not based solely on economic reasons. The request is made to allow Unifin to obtain an occupancy permit so that it could remain at the property without upheaval of its business and its employees, and to enhance employee retention. Number 4, the property owner did not create the necessity for the variance. Findings: the physical limitation of the property predate the instant request for a variation. Number 5, the request is a minimum variance necessary to allow reasonable use of the property. Finding: petitioner seeks as many parking spaces are available at the property and minimal variance for 1 driveway and 1 aisle. The request will not be injurious to public health, safety, or welfare. Finding: the current configuration of tenants has occupied the property since spring 2018, and other than while the parking lot was being resurfaced, no public health, safety, or welfare issues arose. Moreover, the amount of available parking has recently increased as a result of restriping the parking lot. Property is not used at the same time. 1, Unifin has 3 shifts of employees at the property throughout the day, thus requiring no more than 65 parking spaces. Copy of the letter from Unifin President Ian Sarek is attached here to as Exhibit 1. And 2, Chicago Sleep Medicine uses the property in the nighttime and does not utilize parking spaces during the day. The size of certain leased areas as well as assigned use categories that are not correct exaggerates parking needs. Unifin has 3,017 square feet of office space, which requires less parking spaces than its call center of 8,028 square feet would need. 2, Chicago Sleep Medicine in 8930 700A has 7 sleep study rooms, each with a bathroom and shower. But in Suite 700B, Shy Head Neck Surgery, aka Chicago ENT, has employees and clients at the property only in the daytime. Wellbound of Evanston offers dialysis treatment and one-on-one self-learning. It needs far less parking than a trade school, which is its current classification. The subject site poses one or more unique characteristics generally not applicable to similarly situated properties. The property's unique layout and array of tenants necessitates petitioner's request. Furthermore, the proximity of the property to the Skokie-Swift commuter lot, the north section of the lot, which is often completely unused, allows for paid parking in the event of overflow at the property. The proximity of the CTA also allows employees to utilize public transportation, further reducing the need for parking on the property. And it's signed, but I can't make out the signature.
I'm guessing that's Annette Stover.
Okay. So that is the petitioner's statement. Again, we have submittals from the police department, civil engineering, traffic engineering, community development, the fire department. Yeah, that's it.
And like Commissioner Gersner said, all that information is available online, so that can be easily looked at there. If the petitioner would like to step to the podium and present their case. Evening, sir.
Hey, good evening. My name is Nick Standiford.
Okay, good. Yeah, could you spell it so we may have for the record, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nick Standiford. That's spelled N-I-C-K. Last name S-T-A-N-D-I-F-O-R-D. I'm from the law firm of Shane Banks. We are a zoning law firm in Chicago.
And you're representing on behalf of the Stovers here?
Correct. I represent the petitioners here, the Stovers, who are seated to my right. If the Stovers could raise their hand, and then if the tenant at the property, Ian, could raise his hand. Brian, could you put it in presentation mode for me by chance? Go to the slideshow, and then from beginning to the far left. All right. So I made a PowerPoint to help everyone understand kind of what this application and the petitioners are all about. So the petitioners are a family business, and it's operated by Mr. Philip Stover and Ms. Annette Stover. They've been at the property. They own 2 buildings at the property. These are commercial buildings. They have several tenants, and they're listed right there. The Unifin, what would your position be?
President.
The president of Unifin is here tonight. You'll also hear from the Stovers. They'll testify about their experience at the property. We're here tonight because we're seeking a variation from the village's parking requirements. So these are the village's parking requirements. What the village does is they determine by the total square feet in a building how many parking spaces need to be allocated according to the village code. As you can see, Unifin is down, let's see here. Yeah, down here, it's hard to see in black, but they're at the bottom. They require a pretty significant ratio, 1 space for every 100 square feet. That's what the code in Skokie requires. As you can see, the other tenants are listed here on the left side. There are several vacant units on the lower level. These suites have the 8350 building has 2 levels. So Unifin occupies, as you can see here, they occupy the 8950 building. Excuse me, the 8930 building has 2 levels. So all the other tenants occupy the other building. Unifin's leasing a space here from a Deliver Care. They're subleasing a space. So this property, it's located at 8930 and 8950 Grosse Pointe Road. Those 2 commercial buildings I mentioned are located right here and right here. As A and B are the parking lots associated with those 2 buildings. To the north is a adjacent property owner. I believe it's a manufacturer of some sort of printing material. He has several spaces as well. That's a private owner. And then down here is the Skokie Swift commuter lot. As you can see, it's pretty long and large. And then the Skokie Swift train is right down here. So the train stop is right there. So this is a property that's zoned commercial. There are several uses nearby, but that's where it is. Timeline. So I thought it'd be helpful to go through kind of a timeline of how we got here tonight, so that the village zoning board has kind of an idea of what brought us to this point. So in 2016, CSI, which is another tenant at the property, wanted to rent some spaces in this Skokie Swift commuter lot. And the village actually drafted up this agreement right here, allowing for 30 spaces in that lot at a rental rate, where the CSI could rent those spaces, and that would help meet some of the parking needs. So that was never executed, but the village drafted that agreement at one point in time, just a few years ago. So here's Unifin. They started off in this lower level suite of 8930 that I talked about. Well, this is the whole floor, but they started off in the lower level, and their business really started to take off. It started to grow. They started to get more contracts. What they do is they are a telemarketing company that secures repayment on student loan debt. So they started to do really well. These are the owners of this business, as you'll hear tonight, are homegrown guys. Some of them grown up here in Skokie. They've lived in the area. Some of them have lived in the area. They know the area. They really love being at this property and being tenants of these landlords, the Stovers. So they start off in this lower level space in 8930, and then they decide to sublet. They moved from that space and start to sublet in Suite 600 in 2017, and then Suite 400 in 2017, and then Suite 600 in 2018. At that time, they applied for an occupancy permit. And you'll hear testimony tonight that a representative from the village, I understand it was maybe an intern, conducted the inspection and told Unifin that they were okay, they could have their occupancy. Village's fire department inspected the property, approved of it, Unifin's occupancy of those 2 suites. So this is those are the 2 suites. So
No,
here,
the 2 on the left.
excuse me, the 2 on the left. So
That
right
one,
here,
That's 600.
that's 600 and 400,
Yeah.
and then this is
Then this is Wellbound.
Wellbound.
And then at the other end, that's Computer Systems Institute, who also has space across.
Okay, thank you. So those are the 2 spaces they occupy, this space and this space. So after that, the village cashed, Unifin applies for the occupancy permit, the village cashes the check, and everything is seemingly okay. Then in May 2018, the Stovers received a letter from the village saying that there's 2 insufficient parking spaces at the property. This is a letter that was actually written on by you'll hear testimony that's written out by Mrs. Annette Stover, responding to it to try to tell the village what the situation was. As you can see here in this paragraph, it says that the village was stating that 50 parking spaces will be provided off-site for Unifin. So I guess Stovers took that as, well, we can perhaps use that Skokie Swift commuter lot. It also talks about here that there needs to be some repairs to the parking lot. It was in rough shape, so the Stovers took it, they responded to this letter saying, for the reasons you'll hear tonight, that they don't need 222 spaces as required by the village in that chart I showed you. It just doesn't, it's just too many spaces required to meet their parking demands, so they don't need that many spaces. With that application, the Stovers provided, or with that response, the Stovers provided a letter from Unifin saying that their employees, they work in shifts. They're not at the property at all times of the day. It's not like you have a 9-to-5 job. These telemarketers call Eastern time, and then they call Pacific time, so they're calling all different times of day, and so the demand isn't concentrated at one point in time. It's spread out over the course of the day. After that, since the Stovers knew that they needed to make some repairs to their parking lot, they submitted plans and obtained approval to resurface the lots. So here's the village stamp of approval in May 2016. After that, they obtained a resurfacing permit. And at that time, then they received some citations saying that they didn't have, Unifin didn't have an occupancy permit, and they couldn't rent to Unifin. So Unifin was unable to get the occupancy permit that they thought they'd already obtained through the cash check. Next, the Stovers prepared an updated site plan and a zoning board application that you have here with you tonight. So this is the plan. I'm sorry it's not bigger, but okay. Here's another one. I refer you to Exhibit A. So this is a plan that shows, this is what we're here for tonight. So this is what the proposed striping plan is for the two lots. So here's the part where, as you'll heard tonight, there's three kind of different prongs to this. There's we're seeking a reduction in parking spaces from 222 to 167, but we're also seeking some slight variations right here to allow for a row of parking right here, which will provide over a dozen spaces right here in the middle. So we need just some very slight zoning relief to get those spaces in. Currently, everything is striped except for this little aisleway right here. That's why we're here tonight, is to seek your approval to stripe that area to add more spaces to help meet the village's requirements. So the last thing, I'm not sure if this is the last thing, but the last thing we did is we obtained we hired an expert to perform a parking study to kind of actually give the board some idea of the data that's surrounding these parking lots. And you'll hear tonight from the parking expert about her firm's analysis of the parking situation. And I'll provide to you here tonight the copy of the report that was prepared by the parking expert.
For just as a notation, staff has never seen this parking memorandum. This was never submitted to staff.
So for the record, we wanted to give the board all the information that we could. So that's why we had hired a parking expert to come here tonight to talk to you.
So if I may just interject real quick here, Council. This individual from this Sam Schwartz organization is here?
Yes, sir. She'll be here to answer your questions.
Okay, so we can talk to her about the veracity of this memorandum.
Yes, sir. She'll give an overview, and that'll help kind of summarize her findings.
Okay.
So, as I said, the three-prong request is as follows: 165 from 222, just a 1-foot deviation on the drive aisle, and a 4-inch deviation in the aisle width of that area I showed you. So here's the layout. This is a little bigger for you. This shows how the petitioners intend to stripe the lot, at least in the portion that's been unstriped thus far, right here. Here's the access point right here off Green Bay Road. Grosse Point Road. Bears should have beat the Packers. Still hurting about that. But and then here's an access point off to a private or public roadway that leads to a residential area. So the findings of fact tonight, it's the board will be required to look at these factors as were described by the vice chairman earlier this evening, a few minutes ago, and read into the record. Since due to time constraints, you heard our argument. Is that these physical characteristics of the property, there's really nowhere else to expand, and the petitioner has a great tenant that they like to keep. So that's why we're here tonight to ask for a variation from the code. We believe that's a reasonable use of the property. We believe that this is not solely economic purposes we're seeking here tonight. We don't want to put Unifin's employees out of a job. We don't want to have that force Unifin to move. They're a good Skokie business. We've been wanting to work with the village to try to accommodate their parking requirements. The restrictions at the property are due to the fact that there's really no room to grow, like I said. This has been the issue forever for these petitioners. Petitioners are only seeking as many spaces as you'll give them, and the aisle deviations are slight. As you heard earlier, it's important to note that, like I said, Unifin works in shifts. They work in waves, so not everyone's at the property at once. CSM does sleep study rooms where people are there during the nighttime, so that lessens the parking need. Wellbound has dialysis treatment, and if you go back to the village's parking requirements, it requires a lot more spaces for a trade school than it would for a dialysis type treatment that the Evanston offers one-to-one with patients. So I think that this case really is unique. It's unique because this property is so close to a lot that has hundreds of empty spaces at a time that Unifin's employees, and frankly any of the tenants' the other tenants of the property employees can park in. It's free to park there. The petitioners can have developed a system in which they've had tenants, employees go to that lot so that they don't park in the residential neighborhoods, to go to that lot when there's overflow at the property. So there's this really big Skokie Swift commuter lot, and actually, as you saw earlier, the petitioner is willing to pay for spots, and that's revenue for the village if the village would decide to accept their proposal. I think it's $40 a month per space, and the petitioners would happily pay that. So another factor is that the CTA is very close. Not everyone's driving. Some people are taking the train and they're walking to work. So I used the GIS tool, Cook County GIS tool, to show the distance between the Skokie Swift commuter lot right here and the villages and the petitioner's lot. It's less than 300 feet away. It's basically their own parking lot if the village would let them have that option. So, and frankly, it's since it is something that people can pay for, the petitioner is willing to also, as a condition of this application, to issue a certain number of daily passes for that lot so that they can accommodate their employees. As you can see, it's extremely close. And then using the GIS tool, you can see that it's this is how close the property is to the CTA Dempster-Skokie line. It's 0.35 miles away. Even in the winter, you could walk that far without getting cold. So it's pretty close. So this was the parking evaluation that we constructed, and it's based on actual square footages from the floor plans that the tenant provided, that the petitioner provided, and it shows that at most we'll need 173.6, and that's just based on a plain reading of the Skokie code and using correct numbers, using correct designations. Unifin's headquarters are located at the property, therefore they should be classified as office space. That's the same thing as computer systems, which the village is already classifying as office space in their analysis. So that's an important factor. And then you'll see, so the numbers have gone significantly down based on the village's own code. So you'll hear tonight, I'm sure, some complaints from residents in the neighborhood. And we submit to you that those complaints are valid. There was a period of time this spring when the lot was being resurfaced, as you saw before, where the village had a permit to resurface the lot. That led half the lot to be closed at a time, and led all of the employees having to park in the residential neighborhood, having to park in the Skokie strip lot, and understandably infuriated a lot of the residents in that area. And so the Stovers were essentially pushed into a corner. Do you resurface the lot and pursuant to the village's request, or do you let it remain in disarray, or in disrepair, I should say? And they chose to resurface it, and that led a lot of the tenants' employees into places they shouldn't have been parking. We admit to that. But as you can see here, the village is responding to a complaint. This is in your packet, and I wish I would have zoomed it in, but it essentially says that this is the village responding to a citizen complaint. It essentially says that we understand your concerns, and that once the lot is resurfaced, everything should be okay. There's also some information in your packet about the petitioner exceeding their signage requirements. This is a document drawn up by my client to show that a lot of the signs, so what it is there are signs for designated parking spaces, and you can only have a certain percentage. The petitioner admittedly exceeded that number, but they removed several of those signs, as you can see here and here. So the pictures you see in your packet, so this is a picture from your packet showing that this is a Unifin sign right here that the village says wasn't allowed. The Unifin took down those signs. So I guess the clients have been trying to work with the village to make sure that they're in conformance with the codes. So then this is a picture of Grove Street on Friday, 9/14/18. So the parking situation and the new system where tenants are pretty much forced to park in the Skokie Swift lot has led to an alleviation of the congestion in the residential streets.
What time was that taken?
I took that picture. I took pictures between the 14th of September and the 28th of September. I took pictures on 4 different days. My camera does not date the pictures. And then there's other pictures.
All I want to know is what time.
Sometime around midday. I was typically there in the late morning to early
11,
afternoon.
12, 1?
Well, I would say probably about 11 in that range, 10:30 and 11:30. I was there, and there are other pictures in it, but they weren't all on that Friday.
Okay, that's all I need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
So, as a summary, we're seeking a variation for 165 spaces. We're seeking those variations to allow us to restrike that center portion right there. We believe that this request is reasonable. The petitioner will do anything to keep Unifin at the property. So if this board wants to place conditions on the tenant in terms of having a certain number of tenants park at the Skokie Swift lot, that's fine. This is a business that we're proud to have, that we have good tenants, and we believe that they should be able to stay. This is a place that they've called home for several years now. So with that, I'll turn it over to Annette Stover to discuss some of her views on the process in a condensed way, I hope.
Yeah, I'll try to fill a few minutes there.
And then followed by that, we'll have the president of Uniform and then our parking expert, if that's acceptable.
Certainly. It's your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good evening, ma'am.
my name is Annette Stover. My husband is Philip J. Stover. He goes by Jared. We operate a small family business, and we've been doing this for about 30 to 40 years. We are not a great big corporation. It's just us. This is the largest property we own. We also own some rental houses, 6 to be exact, and we own 2 small apartments buildings in Cincinnati, Ohio. And my husband is a certified property manager, and we've always managed our own properties. We are a real hands-on kind of operation. We get to know our tenants. We service their needs. We try to be really responsive when they call us with problems and act on them as soon as we hear about it. Glasses, excuse me. Sorry about that. We also keep our rent low when businesses are just starting up, so we encourage people. And that's partly how we have been able to grow, is because we gave them some low rent, and then with bumps later. And also, one of our other tenants got a little bit of bumpy road 2 years ago when we reduced their rent for 6 months, and then they paid us back later. So a lot of big operators would not do that. They would just say, "You don't pay your rent, you're out." We don't do that. We try to work with people. We also try to be good neighbors, and I'll get to that later. I will also, however, say that this property has been not particularly successful. We bought it in late 2003, and it went well until the end of 2006. We made some money, but then real estate was slowing down. One morning, January the 2nd, a tenant that was in all the space he's in right now just was gone. They just had moved out in the middle of the night. And then another tenant's lease was up about 6 months later, and they moved. Now we're 1/3 vacant. And we stayed, and we got hired brokers. It stayed 1/3 vacant. The real estate downturn hit. It was hard. We hit our savings. We drained our you might call it our retirement fund. We don't have a pension because we're just little people. And we're just feeding this building. Finally, we got a tenant who moved. Oh wait. Meantime, on this particular suite. The particular suite for 600 was. Let's see. The stressed office space economy was a huge factor. For the entire time, suite 600 was either unoccupied or there were short-term low-rent tenants like a bridge club, 2 lawyers there for 2 years but who only paid 2 months' rent, and a small office and storage for an antique dealer, and a short-term overflow used by an existing tenant. There was one market rate tenant who had a lease on his space. They moved into 400 and 600. They occupied 400 for a while, but they never occupied 600 and just broke their lease and went away. Now it's been over 10 years, and this place has not been properly rented, and they wanted to expand, and we made it a special deal with lower rent to entice them to come. That's the story. So I've read things that have come from the city saying, well, you could just get another tenant in a couple of months. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not that easy to get tenants to come in a couple of months. Really, even in today's economy, the recession hit office space very, very hard for about 10 years, and we little people are here to tell you that it wasn't that easy, but we're still here. Now, we'd really like them to stay, and I know that we've caused some troubles with the neighbors, and I want to apologize especially for Well, that time in July when the parking was bad because our lot was torn up. From June 22nd, by the way, let me also show, where's my pen? Maybe I don't have those handy. We put out notice, here, parking lot reconstruction. We had these a lot, telling people from the 22nd on they were going to be working in 2 shifts to get the lot redone. We told them to park across the street. So during the phase 1, it'd be necessary to park on the north lawn, or park across the street in the CTA lot, costs us $2 a day, and we will reimburse people. That's what we told everybody. We passed this out. We told people what other tenants did. And it was the lot was finished in early August, so that was about 6 weeks, and that was when all this chaos was going on, because people weren't obeying the request. So I apologize profusely, but we had to get the lot paid. And so then after that, I thought everything was okay, but come to find out, there were apparently calls coming into the city, but we weren't informed about any of them. On September 14th, we went to a hearing that was held at downstairs. We, at that point, learned that there actually were still some people that were parking from some of our tenants. But I didn't have any idea how many it was, so I went over and started taking pictures. And yes, there were some, but it was you saw the pictures. There were way fewer people than there were when the lot was being resurfaced. So once again, he talked to his people to try to get him to not after the 14th. And so the picture I took after the 14th, it was better than it had been before. So we're really trying to respond. And honestly, we want. Well, first of all, we didn't even know that it was the August period, that first month after the lot was done. We didn't realize that people were still parking over there, or we'd have gotten on real sooner than that. And the lot is still not at full capacity because of the striping. We'll try to get that striping done as soon as possible when we get those minor variations. We want to be good. We want to be good citizens. This is a big deal for us. This property. And it's an even bigger deal for Ivan, who's going to talk later. Three young guys starting a business. He's from Croatia. One of the guys grew up in the neighborhood, and Tom, there's 3 partners. We want to help them out because they're really building a business, and they're wanting to be good citizens, and we're trying to work together to keep this business and keep everybody happy. And it just seems like. It doesn't seem very fair to put a company out of business. I may have 400 employees to fire. Put a company out of business for a parking issue which could be solved by leasing some spaces in the CTA lot across the way. 2 years ago, they were willing to lease the CTA lot. On May 1st, they were willing to lease us on. So all of a sudden, something happened over the summer. I don't know why. The relationships were bad. I don't know, somehow the city was seemed very, I won't say much more. I'm just thinking the city was on our backs, let's put it that way. And I really think that the whole thing would be solved if they could park in that lot over across the way for any overflow needs.
Have you visited the CTA Skokie Swift lot?
Oh, yes.
And what have you noticed on your visit?
Okay, I've been watching this lot for many, many years. There's 217 spaces. It's about 2 to 3 blocks long, and most everybody parks to the south end because they're taking the train. There's never anybody up in the north end where we are, except for people from our building. The whole middle part is usually empty. So whenever we had some overflow needs, there's always been places over there to park. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, there was some, in the staff report, there was a mention that the village thought that the parking would be too tight in that lot during Cubs games. Have you ever witnessed that?
Only once in 10 years have I ever seen a lot of cars at park for a Cubs game.
And when was that?
That was this past playoff game.
And was that a day game or a night game?
It was a day game.
Okay.
There were still spaces in the lot, but there were a lot, and I also saw a lot of cars with people on the street. So I think it was like, and they're tearing up Suffield, so that anybody who parks there has to go somewhere else. It just looked like that one particular day was just a very, very unusual day. So there's other things I could go over that, like Wellbond should reduce their stuff for trade school, but we've already covered that.
So can you talk about that situation with the amount of space used for showers and other facilities that aren't really tenant occupied spaces?
Okay, there was once a sleep clinic there that had 14 sleeping rooms that had complete bathrooms, 14 complete bathrooms. And there would just be somebody there at night to sleep, for a sleep study. And I don't think our parking was ever actually reduced for them.
But that's square footage that's counted towards your parking allocation.
Yeah.
That's kind of unused, correct?
Now half of it's used for sleep studies at night, and the other half is used by the ENT group. So now just half of it's night use. At one point it was all night use. Anything else?
Unless you want to say anything.
I'm sure there's plenty I'd like to say, but if I need to say more, I guess I'll speak up later. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Sarah? Step voting.
Good evening, sir. Could you please tell us your name and spell it so we may have it for the record?
Ian Saric, it's IAN-SARIC.
And you are the owner of the
I'm
company?
a third owner and president of Unifin Inc. The tenant of stores.
So can you describe kind of your history of the property?
Yeah, so Unifin was founded 2011 and three partners, two of my partners, they are like, they are Skokie residents for a long time. Both of them, their parents still live in Skokie. And that's part of the reason, I live in Lincolnwood. Part of the reason why we actually, decide to rent, it's close to us. And so we started the business, we want a cheap rent, and we find out, home in store's basement, lower level, how they call it. And we grew a lot explosively, so, the way we did business, I guess it was working out for us. And then very fast, we outgrew that space. I'm sorry about my English, I'm from Croatia and I do make mistakes. So we overgrew that space in the basement, and then, we said, okay, we gotta move. And then why wouldn't we just, Mr. Stover, there was an empty space upstairs, and we said, okay, let's go and move over there, because our lease expired. We were there for like 5 years or so. I'm not 100% sure about how long, but I think about 5 years we stayed there in the lower level. And then, the business was growing. We actually signed another government contract. My background is U.S. Department of Education, my partners partly. And, we did that back in 2013, and then now we actually got another contract, and we really, performing very well on it, and there is a need for more and more customer service representatives, more and more paper have been thrown our way, and we've been growing. When we actually moved on there, we just actually signed a lease, okay? We haven't been, we are really not, we just signed a lease with Stovers. We didn't really look into anything, but we just need more space to sign the lease. And then when we signed the lease, we applied for the permit. There was a young gentleman came from Skokie, I guess, he checked us out. I wasn't, my partner was there. I'm not sure. And then we continued to operate until we were aware, hey, you gotta get a permit. You guys don't have a occupancy permit. So we applied for it, and then as we had more people, I guess there was a inspection. We passed inside, but we didn't pass outside inspection because there was no parking. So that's the history. And then we moved over, So, I mean, we definitely need space to operate. And and you know, we respect Skokie definitely, and we would love to whatever is the best for us and you guys, Stovers. I hope you guys consider everybody.
Can you describe the shifts of employees that are at the property?
Well, yeah, so what's happened is back, Ms. Towers, you know, they realized there is a problem here, and they told me, okay, can you know, write a letter, what's happening? That was in February, March, April, and then May, yeah. So what's happened is in beginning of May, but that's, I think, yeah, we have been explosively growing, okay? So the reason why we rented the space upstairs is because we expected that. So we did scatter. We are servicing some private clients besides government, some universities in England, and they are mostly calling Africa and England, Poland, all around the world. So we do have people that come sometimes, you know, you're gonna see them at night, and then you're gonna see them very early in the morning. So we say it like, you know, overseas, because their time zones are different, so sometimes even in China. So, you know, so when we signed that letter, that was in May, we had like that shift, and then U.S. Department of Education coming early in the morning. You're gonna see now, you know, starting 7 cars to start coming, and then we stay open till like 9. So, you know, there is a few shifts that we operate. But since then we did grow. Okay, so I just don't want to mislead the Skokie or anyone. You know, we continue to grow, and you know, that's the situation currently, that we are having people there, you know, pretty regularly. You know, first the night shift is not as, you know, now, because kind of like that business kind of we don't pay attention as much, because Department of Education is definitely a better client. So, but the first and second shift, it's kind of yes spread, and then third shift is like you know, just a few people as well.
So not everyone in your company is at the property at a single time?
Absolutely not.
Can you describe the interior layout of your 2 suites? Is it an entire cubicle situation, or are there offices within the suites?
Right. So we do have a management offices. Like we have a conference rooms. We have you know, one of the offices is kind of like training room, and then we have like 6 offices. There is a 2 data rooms. There is you know, offices for manager, for support, there is quite a few. So I would say that we have altogether like about 10 offices and training rooms, and the rest is a call center.
Do you operate at your headquarters out of that space?
Yes.
So would you believe that should be considered classified as headquarters, office space, or a call center?
We are, yeah, you know, office space is definitely there. I believe that we should have some office space, you know, assigned to us, because that you see that offices, that's our office space, and then where the workstations, I think that would be fair to say that's a center. So I don't know too much about zoning.
Calls for a legal conclusion. Have you seen tenants park at the Skokie Swift lot?
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, when there was a problem, we realized, and I tried even, you know, make a deal with Skokie. And
can you describe that deal?
Yeah, so, you know, there was a need, not enough parking, right? There was an issue with that, and then Mr. Stovers did, you know, tell me that they had a deal. Or I don't know exactly how did they find out. I think they spoke to Clint, or we find out that we could, I think that you guys told Clint that we could actually rent a space over there to, you know, because there is not enough parking. So what we did, we contacted Skokie, we came over here, I gave him a $2,000, gave you guys $2,000 check, and then it was returned back to us. for, I guess, until everything's squared away, or I don't know.
Can you describe, actually, I'll leave that to the parking expert who conducted the study, but do people, do employees at your office take the train?
There's a few employees I know very well. One of my training manager takes a train, and there's a few people, yeah.
Okay, so not everyone drives.
No, not everyone.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say?
Nothing, I mean,
Yeah, hold on here a second, Mr. Sarek. I believe there's a few members of the board that would like
So
to
how
ask you
many
some
employees
questions.
do you have when you moved in the property?
when I moved into the property, I had, when did we sign the lease? I just want to make sure that I'm not making a
You
line.
mean when in 2012, when you first?
When
moved?
you, yeah.
No, when
first
I
moved
moved in the 18, what date did we sign that new lease on?
2017.
Oh, that was late 2017, and then you expanded it into 600, maybe
When
first
did-
of 2018.
Maybe, no, when I signed the lease in,
Mike,
Are you talking about the initial lease, Michael?
no, second lease. He's talking how many?
When you first moved in?
When you
Oh,
moved
in
in.
the lower level.
That's the original
Upper
lease.
level,
6
no,
years
no.
ago.
Oh, 6 years ago?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was only like, it wasn't really employees, it was only 3 of us. Three owners. So, and then we actually got 2 employees right after, and then we had like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then so on.
So you initially moved in with your certificate of occupancy in 2011 or 2012?
Wow.
So that was 2013, I believe, 12 or 13, first time, and I moved in the lower level, first lease. I
It
think
had to be 12.
12, I believe, yeah. Because we started operating on 2013, like
I think it's maybe in
February.
the fall of 2012.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And so how many employees you have when you signed a second time lease?
Second time, that was in
Late in about December 2017.
December, right? That was, yeah. Then we had all together about like 30 employees. I would say 20 to 30 employees.
So now you have at present 100 employees?
I have about
About
100
100?
people. Yeah.
I believe Commissioner Gersner has a question for you now.
So let me ask you a question. So Ms. Stover said that we don't grant you this tonight, that you're going to close up and fire all the people and you're going to lose your contract. Would you do that? Or would you move?
Well, I don't. My kind of business, if you guys, if I cannot operate there, if you guys would tell me you cannot operate, obviously I cannot close the business. But if there is a situation that, I would definitely try to save the business and move it in the case that you guys, okay, how to say?
I just want to know, if we say no, are you going to tell the Department of Education, we can't service you anymore, close up your business and go home? Or will you take your business and move it somewhere else with all your employees? That's all I want to know.
I would try definitely to save the business if I can, so I wouldn't say that I would close the door immediately. If you guys shut me down, and then I'm done, right? But if you guys say, okay, you know what, depending how long time you give me to fix this situation, or if you tell me I will not give you, you just have to move right away, or give me a big penalties, then definitely I will shut the business right away. In the case that I cannot financially support penalty or whatever, I don't know what's the plan you guys have. But I would definitely try to save the business, because that's all I know, so far, and there's a lot of families, depending on this. So.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Serafino? No? All right, thank you.
I think it's a question.
Okay.
Yeah, would some people in the audience like to have an answer? Do you have, all right, sir, if I, yeah.
Did they have one of their parking study person talk briefly first and then the audience?
Let's do it that way. Sir, and it may behoove people who want to come up and speak that are from the neighborhood or that have questions for the tenant and the property owner to hear all their case first, and then you can rebut them accordingly if you so wish.
Oh, I was going to ask a question. I wasn't rebutting anything.
Oh, no, that's fine. I would say save all your questions for the petitioners until they've fully presented their case.
Yeah, write them down. So
Yeah, write them down so you don't forget. Yeah, please do. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'd now like to call our parking expert.
A PDF of this memo.
While he's queuing that up, good evening.
Good evening.
May we have your name?
Yes.
The organization you work for, so we have it for the record?
My name is Sarah Disney Hoffey. I work for Sam Schwartz Consulting. Sarah is S-A-R-A, D-I-S-N-E-Y, H-A-U-F-E. So much of the discussion presented this evening has been oriented around the code requirement of parking, and our memorandum approached it from a slightly different angle to go out and document what the parking demand associated with this property appeared to be empirically. And I do apologize that this memo is just arriving to you today. Please take your time to look through it and inquire as to whatever information I can share with you to satisfy all of your questions. So if we can jump to page 2 of the PDF that appears to get me some trouble, I apologize. In order to conduct this study, we considered the on-site parking lots that are adjacent to and on the same property as 8930 and 8950, as well as other parking lots in the area that may be likely to be used or could potentially be used, even if they aren't today, by individuals who are driving to and parking at this location. As Mr. Standiford alluded to earlier, we have given them letter names to tell them apart. Lots A and B are on the property. One is towards the southwesterly portion of the property and the other is towards the north end. On the south side of Grosse Pointe Road, we subdivided portions of the Skokie Swift North lot based on physical separation with landscaping that divide parking spaces up from each other. At the far north end, you'll see Lot C, which has 27 spaces in it. And then south of that is Lot D, which we ended up dividing up into a north and south portion, and I'll get into that in just a moment. And finally, we also did a parking demand survey in Lot E, which is owned by a separate private property owner immediately north of the 8950 building, just to get an understanding of what potential parking availability was in the area. So we conducted hourly parking demand surveys in each of these lots, beginning at 7 a.m. and our last circuit started at 8 o'clock p.m. and that was based on our understanding of the peak operating hours for the tenants in this building and in particular Unifin. And the result was to document what the total number of parked vehicles was in each of these locations. So it's not specifically attributed to any particular tenant. It reflects the shared parking characteristics of this development. And this is a shared lot on the site and it's utilized by all of the tenants that occupy the property, or in the case of the Skokie Swift lot, the tenants that occupy the property across the street. And it enabled us to get an idea of how many vehicles are wanting to park at this location. So if you can turn to page 3, at the top you can see a detailed summary of the parking demand that we recorded on an hourly basis in each of those lots. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we ended up dividing Lot D at the southern portion of the Skokie Swift lot that we surveyed. And forgive me for using all of these directions. We only surveyed a portion of the Skokie Swift North lot, the northern half that is closest to the 8930 and 8950 property, and therefore most likely to potentially be utilized by tenants, employees, and customers. We then looked only at the northern portion of that north part based on what we observed while we were out there. We did see a large space between individuals who appeared to be parking closer to the south, closer to the CTA station, and therefore would reasonably be assumed to be taking the CTA or going to properties further south. And then on the north end of that open space of parking spaces, we assumed that those could reasonably be assigned to the 8930 and 8950 buildings. So those primary lots that we focused on are summarized in Table 2 here, and you can see that the hourly parking demand that we documented in each of those locations, the 2 lots on the property, and the 2 relevant portions of the Skokie Swift North lot, reached a peak demand at 2 p.m. with 187 vehicles at that time. So based on that information, we compared it to the number of spaces that are proposed with the improved and restriped parking lot. I apologize, this must be referencing an old site plan that says 167 on-site spaces. I understand it's 155. So this demonstrates that the number of vehicles we counted is 22 more than the 165 spaces that are proposed. So at a minimum, we would suggest that off-site parking be secured in order to support that amount of parking. It would also be desirable to accommodate daily fluctuations and allow for some flexibility so that individuals are not circulating the parking lot looking for the one last space that's available. To have a cushion, we in the industry would typically recommend that be up to 10%. And so the range of additional parking that we would be suggesting is provided is between 20 and 39 parking spaces off-site. So we believe that there are a couple spaces that could be obtained. The Skokie Swift lot is an obvious choice. We also noted in Lot E, which is that private property to the north, that there were up to 13 available spaces all day in that lot, so potentially there could be an agreement reached between those 2 property owners to accommodate that off-site parking demand. And if that off-site parking demand were provided, particularly in the Skokie Swift lot, we would suggest that pedestrian accommodations be explored to safely convey pedestrians across Rose Point Road on a regular basis.
So based on your analysis, the 222 spaces required under the village code is excessive, correct?
It exceeds the parking demand that was estimated.
Okay, thank you. By how much? Yeah, good parking.
222 to 87, so 35.
Okay. So if the petitioner's classifications were adopted, their appeal of the classifications were adopted, then there would be sufficient spaces for these tenants.
With the off-site parking provision, that's right.
So if Skokie leased 30 spaces, or if we obtained 14 or so from the neighbor, there would be sufficient parking in front.
Does anybody have any questions for? Yes.
Have you been to the lot recently?
Our data collection is from last week, Thursday.
Okay. I have one from 7:09 and 5 seconds this evening. And it blows your numbers out of the water.
Okay.
Okay? You have 24 cars. I have at least 45 cars there, and they're double parked in the center.
In which location?
Because they haven't been striped yet.
I don't care. That's no parking.
Talk to the zoning area to stripe this.
I'm not talking to you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
That, and then I rode around on my bicycle so I would be inconspicuous to take a look and see other times of the day, which I went over the past couple of weeks. And they're parking all over the place. They're parking in places they're not supposed to park, where people can't back out. So, as far as I'm concerned, I don't put much value to this. Okay?
Well, what I can tell you is you will see in the top of table 1, we did observe people who were parking in non-spaces, and we categorize that as illegal parking, meaning they are in the aisles at different locations. That was captured in the parking demand. What we looked at was not based on the number of spaces, it was based on the number of vehicles. And so we conduct studies like this all the time, and we perform this within the best practices of the industry. And so this is the number of vehicles that were documented on the property last week and this day.
I'm telling you tonight, there's a whole slew. And I saw them all over the place. But I stopped before I came here and took some pictures.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Yeah, I just want to say I was there late yesterday afternoon, and somebody who was double parked as I was pulling out stopped me and asked me where they could park. It was a disaster there, quite frankly.
We did document that, yes, it is quite full at certain parts of the day, particularly beginning late morning into the afternoon, and that is where the recommendation for additional off-site parking came from.
I did notice that there were a number of handicap parking spaces empty. I also noticed in reading that there was supposed to be a tree planted for every 15 parking spaces, and that does not apply now.
I couldn't speak to the site plan or the number of handicap parking spaces. There is a minimum of ADA accessible parking spaces that has to be provided based on the total number in accordance with Illinois law. But I understand that there's a civil engineer contracted to develop the site plan, and I would assume that they comply with that law.
When you conducted the analysis of this, when your field tech conducted the analysis of this Skokie Swift lot, was that lot full?
It was not. We found that what we called Lot C at the very northern end, yes, it was full for a large portion of the day. Then if you look down to Lot D, the portion that we ascribed to demand related to 8930 and 8950, we documented actually in total, including CTA parkers, up to 27 vehicles parked in what we called Lot D on that map, and there are 100 spaces provided in that lot.
And what time of day was the study conducted?
That peak occurred in the 1 p.m. hour, and we began at 7 a.m. and went through the 8 p.m. hour.
So 27 vehicles in that lot was the peak at 1 p.m. that day?
In that portion of the Skokie Swift.
Are there additional spaces that are, so in the map on page 2 of your report, does the Skokie Swift lot extend further to the south?
It does extend further to the south. We only conducted our study in the northern portion of the entire Skokie Swift North lot, based on where we thought we were most likely to document parked individuals who are traveling to 89 and 8950. So we don't have any information about additional parking supply in the portions of the lot south of there.
Thank you.
And you know for a fact that the people that were parked in the Skokie Swift lot were working in that building.
I can't know for a fact for every single one, but we did observe people walking, and then it's based on our professional judgment, seeing the space of empty parking spaces between the northern end and the southern end, and that's how we attributed those vehicles.
So in your best judgment, you cannot say for sure that all those vehicles that were in there were employees of that company.
I cannot say that for sure. We were making an assumption and attributing every car that we saw parked in those most proximate portions of the lot to this building. So you're right, there may be some vehicles that are not related to this building that we're counting in this 187.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Staff has a few
Yeah, of course. Right.
So you did testify that this analysis was just submitted today, that staff has previously not seen that. Correct. So our traffic engineer, for the record again, the traffic engineering division has not seen this memorandum. This summary parking demand survey was done in one day, correct?
Correct.
You do not have multiple days on different days of the week?
No, it's standard that we capture a typical day.
Okay, but you've only been to the site once to do this study. This was for one day.
That's correct.
You weren't there prior to the site doing the study.
Correct.
Is there anywhere in here, does it note that any of the spaces that are assigned, how many of those assigned spaces were empty?
It does. In table 1, you'll see that there are different categories based on space type. We categorized regular spaces, meaning unmarked, anybody can use, handicap spaces, a group of reserved spaces for the sleep center, for Wellbound, for Unifin, and then those who were parked in unmarked locations. And the reserved spaces, we did that based on posted signage.
So I don't know if you're
Striping.
aware of our code ordinance. I mean, this was in our staff report. The code section 118.209 of the village code assigned parking spaces for non-residential uses. No more than 10% of required off-street parking shall be assigned. Required parking spaces shall not be assigned in non-residential parking lots serving multiple uses. This lot clearly serves multiple uses, and there are still assigned parking spaces on the site. So that is a violation of the zoning ordinance. Required parking spaces shall not be assigned in non-residential parking lots serving multiple uses.
Objection, it calls for legal conclusion. You can answer if you want.
I'm just stating what the code.
We're not a court of law, sir.
Well,
We're not a court of law, okay?
The rules of evidence do loosely apply.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
It wasn't a question, it was just stating something.
I have a comment rather for the council.
Commissioner Salvi.
Just for the council here. In case other businesses want to, just an observation, in case other businesses have a problem with parking or not enough parking places, they too can say, we'll use the CTA lot and let's not worry about, we'll circumvent the rules about how many parking spaces, we'll just go to the lot, the CTA lot, and this will set a precedent up. Just an observation, am I correct?
Why don't we, this board can say we must give X number of spaces. That's something that will be determined by someone else. We don't have the power to grant a lease for parking spaces. So if anything, there'll just be a continuum for the village to try and work something out. But we don't have the power to say, yes, we're leasing you 40 spaces for a year, let's see if it works. So I don't even think we have the power to do that.
Can you do one more question for?
Yeah.
Did you do any parking counts on the surrounding residential blocks? Suffield Court, Grove Street, Laramie Avenue?
Our study was focused on the parking lots marked.
Okay, thank you.
I actually have a question for staff, just for quick clarification. We keep hearing a lot about the CTA lot, the Skokie Swift lot, these lots that are now being proposed by the Sam Schwartz parking as lots C and D, north, east, south. Who indeed owns the CTA lot?
The north lot? We're talking, there's two lots. The north lot is north of Dempster.
Right.
The south lot is south of Dempster.
Yeah, the lot in question that
the village of Skokie owns what's known as the Skokie Swift commuter lot, the north lot.
Okay, so the village of Skokie does own what is considered C and D north, D south?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Or we have the right to lease the spaces. I believe we do own them,
spaces.
so we do have the right to lease the spaces. We collect the revenue and check for violations.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Just a clarification for the record. Any other questions for anybody? If not, then the chair will go ahead and entertain comments or questions from other people in the audience. If you wish to make a statement or if you have a question for the petitioners.
I have a question. Is this when all of us need to do our statements? Yes.
Yes. What we need you to do, ma'am, is come up to the podium, give your name and spell it so we have it for the record. And if you wish to tell us, if you're a resident of the area, yeah, go ahead and sign it.
so be careful.
On the space now.
Hey, good evening, sir.
Hi, my name is Ron Abrams. I live on 5100 Lockwood Road.
Okay.
Can you spell your name for the record?
A-B-R-A-M-S. Can I ask one question to the chairman, if I may?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned about July and August when the parking problems existed. Who told you that? Why did you say July and August?
Well, I saw the complaints. I'm not a witness, but
okay.
I was just referring to the complaints
Okay.
that were listed in the staff package.
Okay.
Okay, all right, but that's good. Sir, if I may, Corporation Counsel has come up with something that's very important with these proceedings. Sure, go ahead.
For any future questions, and for any questions the audience has, direct questions to the chairman, and then later on, we'll allow the petitioner to rebut or answer those questions, but really shouldn't take conversations between the parties tonight at all.
My wife and I moved to 5100 Lockwood Grove Street 31 years ago. For 30 and a half of those years, Grove was a quiet, enjoyable place to live. You would occasionally see a few people from the office complex walking during lunch, a block or two down Grove to Lockwood, never stopping to talk on their cell phone or littering, etc. The only cars we'd see from the complex would be some employees entering and exiting the office lot at the beginning of the day, and that would be it. Then in March of April, all that changed with Unifin starting there. First thing we noticed was between 9 and 6, Monday through Friday, there were no available parking spots on 5100 Lockwood Road, except for lunchtime when maybe a couple spots would open up for a little while. Out of the 27 spots, our homeowners had a total of generally 2 to 3 cars parked on road. All these problems occurred all day, Monday through Friday, every week. And this went on for months. We have a side driveway, the border, which is around less than 100 feet away from the 8950 address, and we border a fire hydrant. Many cars were blocked part of our driveway in order to be further away from the hydrant, although still too close to it. And police records will show that the number of tickets for parking illegally over the last 6 months has increased dramatically. Another major concern we have is Unifin employees. During their various breaks, talking loudly on their cell phones while stopping and standing in front of our house, they walk on our driveway towards our house, maybe 10 to 15 feet, and just stand there talking on their cell phones. When I confronted a few of these people and just asked them, why do you want our property, they would just look at me like it's our problem. Obviously, they don't care about anybody except for themselves when they are that way with our block. Everything going on here is not helping to increase the value of our property, and if this would have taken place 31 years ago before we moved, we wouldn't have moved on this block. Why would we want to deal with what's going on? And the only thing I'll say in regard to Unifin and relocating, well, when you expand your business because you're doing well, then you find a new location to move that will accommodate your business. It'd be nice if somebody would think a bit about all our concerns, and we've just been good neighbors to everybody, and no one is from the building has talked to us and said how we feel about what's going on. They look in the nighttime between 6 and 8. There have been instances in the summer where it's nice out, we have the windows open, and they're talking so loudly, they'll stand on one night, they were out in front of their car, right in front of our house. And I believe this one car seen every day. I don't know if it's management, but there are half a dozen people there talking, and this went on for over an hour. After a while, I figured they would stop and they would leave, so I never called the police. And with the shifts going as they are, it's like, well, we're going to have to deal with this for maybe 15 hours a day. I mean, the sleep study, I've never even known there were cars in the lot there. Maybe because they're so quiet, nobody knows that. They are. Anyway, thanks for listening.
All right, thank you, sir.
Can I? That's fine.
There's no questions for
that's fine. Okay.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. Could you please tell us your name and spell so we may have it for the record?
My name is Allison Zidek, Allison, Z as in zebra, I-D-E-K, and I live at 8959 Laramie, which is on the corner of Laramie and Road.
Okay.
My family has lived here for almost 57 years, and I'm raising my 17-year-old daughter in our family home. Over all these years, we have never experienced any issues like this with tenants of the office buildings at the end of our block. There are 10 homes on the 5100 block of Grove and an additional 10 homes on the 8900 block of Laramie. Until recently, it has been a friendly and quiet neighborhood. I'm the neighborhood block watch captain for both blocks and have received many, many complaints about the parking, trash, and loitering that's been occurring in the neighborhood over the last 5 months. I and other neighbors have been sharing photos with the police department, zoning, and mayor's office for months, and we have more taken as recently as this afternoon. The residents of this neighborhood have endured and continue to endure too much. Of the 10 homes on Grove, there are 3 families that have lived in their homes for over 55 years. Most all the others have lived there over 10, 20, 30 years. These are my neighbors, they're family. It's a stable neighborhood where we know and look out for each other. There are 4 homes that have seniors with serious health issues on this block. My dad, who turned 95 just 2 weeks ago in September and lives with us over the summer, recently had a stroke and has a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, and a nurse who come to our home multiple times each week. Often they can't park in front of our house because employees of the office building are parked in all the spaces. They have to spend time looking for parking, which takes away the time from his therapy sessions. My sister and I have been taking my dad to numerous doctor's appointments this summer, and when we return home, we often have to double park while we help my dad into the house and then have to leave him alone while we go to find a parking space. There's an elderly woman who lives at the end of the block, closest to the office buildings, who has bone cancer and is going through chemotherapy. Her daughter has shared that they often have issues parking in front of her home when they return from her chemo and doctor's appointment. The woman who lives next door to me on Laramie had a baby at the end of August. She had to walk almost a block home with heavy groceries after work while 9 months pregnant. She's worried about what will happen when she returns to work and has to carry the baby along with her. These are real people with real issues who are having their quality of life affected by the fact that the number of employees working at the office building has increased significantly and there aren't enough parking spaces to accommodate them. The atmosphere of our quiet neighborhood, where everyone knows each other, has been altered. The number of strangers walking around our neighborhood is concerning. Individuals and groups walk around smoking, talking loudly, even swearing on their phones, and leaving trash by their cars, on the parkways, and on our lawns. We've shared pictures of this as well. On 2 occasions, I've come home from work early to find 3 people standing by a car in front of my home smoking marijuana. I've recently felt the need to purchase a home alarm system due to the number of unknown people in the neighborhood, hoping to give a better sense of security to my 17-year-old daughter who comes home alone after school. No available parking spaces on the street during the day has also caused issues for deliveries, our mail person, landscapers having to double park, and the street cleaner getting through. We live on a narrow dead end where the snowplows already struggle to turn around. I can't imagine what will happen if all these cars continue to park in Grove when it's snowing. Cars have been parked everywhere, in front of fire hydrants and walkways across driveways. We've had to call and report these to the Skokie Police Department, wasting taxpayer money and resources with parking concerns. The situation hasn't gotten better despite the order of the administrative hearing a few weeks ago to temporarily reduce the workforce at Unifin. While I think we've all seen Mrs. Stover out on the street first thing in the morning asking people not to park in Grove, this just moves people to Laramie, and as soon as she leaves, people come and park in Grove. I'm concerned that if the zoning variance is approved, we the neighbors will have no recourse going forward and will continue to have to deal with the lack of parking, trash, and loitering. It's evident that there are too many cars for the spaces available, and even with Unifin's offer to pay for spaces in the CTA lot, too many people will continue to park in our neighborhood. While we value having growing businesses in Skokie, this particular office space is not the right fit for a large employer. As a longtime homeowner, taxpayer, and involved Skokie resident, I urge the members of the zoning committee to reject the proposal to change the zoning requirements for this property and tenant. Please help us maintain the integrity, livability, and excellent quality of life we enjoy in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Ma'am? Your first name again?
Allison.
Allison. So, I was by your house, and I saw a guy on his cell phone. It was about 11 o'clock, smoking, yelling, and he opened his car door, turned on his car, and he was blasting music. I know what you're going through.
Yes, it's
When I
changed
took
the
out
quality
my
of life.
phone to take a picture, he ran.
But do you know whether that's an employee?
Yeah, it was,
How do you
because he
know?
walked right into the place after I took out my camera, so I knew where he was coming from.
And even if it's not Unifin, it's the office buildings.
Yep.
I can't tell you who everybody belongs to, but there's too many employees in the place for the parking.
We, my area, we had a problem with parking with a company, with a telemarketing company. It took us a year to solve it.
Well, this
So
has
we
already
got it
been going
solved.
on almost 6 months, right?
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Vice Chairman, can my client respond to the allegations about the character of his business, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, Unifin, we actually put a lot of signs over there and notified our employees not to actually park on Grove as well. We kind of police street ourselves, and as well, there is no way that you say you saw a person coming in the Unifin, but we actually blocked the door so they don't have access anymore to the. So unless you saw them coming to the front door,
Follow them. Yeah. We
Right.
walked around to the front where.
so all the way from there's like 2 doors.
Right. And I've got pictures of the.
Even if it's not Unifin, it's the property.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we definitely.
I don't know if it was your employee. I know it was an employee that was there.
In the
Right.
area, in the buildings.
And when he saw me take out my camera, he took off, and I followed him. So.
There were still people there tonight when I left at 7 o'clock to come here.
Yeah, that's a second shift.
But they're still parked in front of my house, and I
Oh,
cannot
Unifin?
park there. I don't know who, yes, they're not our employees, they're not residents.
Right, no,
And they're walking to the office.
We're good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, we have any more.
Anyway, just line up.
Okay.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Denise Everport.
Okay, could you spell your last name so we have for the record?
Haberkorn. I live at 5140 Grove Street, a little bit downtown Allison. I'm not sure I could do better than you. That was awesome. Anyway, yeah, if you're listening to all this, what I've written here has kind of changed a little bit. But first, I'll just let you know who I am, who my family is. We're the new kid on the block, moving into the neighborhood in 2006. I moved in with my 2 boys when they were 9 and 5. They're now 22 and 18. They grew up in the house. The stadium was our home away from home. I had 1 hockey player and 1 figure skater. I work out of the house. I'm in outside sales, and sometimes I'm gone all day, sometimes I'm home all day, sometimes I'm in and out a lot. So I probably observe a lot more than a lot of other people do in the neighborhood. I also have to load and unload quite a bit of things in my car quite frequently. It's rare anymore that I come home and I can park in front of my house. In fact, I almost don't even expect to park in front of my house anymore, but most times I can't park on my block, which is inconvenient if you're just parking and walking, but I have all of this other stuff that I have to deal with. The parking situation is bad enough, but as Allison and Ron both pointed out, the rudeness of the employees is what makes the situation really quite intolerable. So I have a couple examples up here, which other folks have talked about as well, but I did come home one day in the summer to a sedan with 4 people in it, smoking weed in front of my house. And I rolled down the window and asked if they were going to be leaving. When they rolled the window down, that's how I knew they were smoking weed. Anyway, they did kind of peel away and give me my spot at that moment. There is a constant, and I mean constant, stream of folks walking up and down the street, talking on their cell phone, smoking cigarettes, smoking whatever. Maybe they smoke weed while they're working, I have no idea. But garbage, I mean, I've seen it just fly right out of the windows of the car. I picked up from the street. I picked up countless bags of garbage, cigarette butts, cigarette boxes.
That picture.
And as Allison pointed out, the street cleaning services are an issue. Street cleaning, leaf collection. I dare to think what it would be like if this is continuing when the snowplow needs to show up, because it's already bad enough, as Allison pointed out. But to just reflect on the leaf collection for a moment, I'm the obnoxious neighbor with the 16-foot circumference cottonwood tree in my front yard. So I have lots of branches, and multiple times, like you guys have seen cotton trees, you know, the branches just fall. Put the branches out in the street because the city comes and collects them, except for I come home and they're in my yard because people have put them in the yard so they can park there. So it's just kind of this perpetual branch situation, which is only going to get worse as the fall rolls on. There's a few facts that can read my chicken scratch here, of which were laid out in the case that I believe to be incorrect. The fact that nobody from the company was parking in the neighborhood before the lottery strike was going on, that it was the lottery striking that caused that to occur. As Ron pointed out, that's not the case. I can't really pinpoint the exact date, but April is about the time that I'm guessing. And Ian and I met very soon after the parking situation started. He's a very nice man. He assured me that he has spaces across the street that he had secured for his employees to park in. But the problem is that his employees don't listen to what they're told. I meant to bring my phone up here, and I have a picture that I took today, if you guys would like to see it, of a sign that's in the window that says no parking on Grove with a, you know, P with a slash through it. The sign's been there for so long it's quite ripped up, but clearly they don't pay attention to it. Now, if my boss tells me don't do this, and day after day after day I do it, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be having a job anymore. So there's no enforcement going on. And outside of the parking issue and the massive amount of growth that Ian has been fortunate enough to receive, they don't enforce their own rules. There's also a sign, I believe, that the Stovers put up that says that if you're parking, you know, here, 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 where you're not supposed to, that you'll be towed. I've never seen a tow truck tow anyone. To comment about the additional striping they want on the part of the lot that runs parallel to the Grosse Point. I know, I saw you ride your bicycle, was that yesterday? I was sitting on my front porch. I've seen the cars fully parked in there, and if an emergency vehicle needs to get in there, it's not happening. So that's just my personal opinion on that. The car striping, or the not car striping, the parking lot striping, I was on vacation from July 20th to July 30th. So I wasn't even there when the majority of it was happening, and I have not noticed a whole lot of difference between before that and after that as far as the people that park in the neighborhood, and it's continually the same people. In fact, Mrs. Stover and I were talking one morning last week, and a fellow went walking by us, guys, every day. They used to park in front of my house, but no parks on the street, with his, you know, jewel bag with his lunch in it. And she said to him, "You can't park here." And he said, "I live in the neighborhood," which was a total lie. Yeah. So, let me just see here. I first met Mrs. Stover on October 26th, and I have 5 dates here between October 26th and today, dates and times of how many cars.
September 26th?
Yeah, sorry, no, October. No, September, sorry, September, yeah, September, so sorry. So September 26th, 11:15 a.m., there were 15 non-resident cars on my block. September 27th, 11:45 a.m., there were 10 non-resident cars on my block, and this is just the block of Grove Street with 10 houses.
If I may ask, how were you able to ascertain that?
Because I know my neighbor's cars, and I know what cars are Unifin cars. They've been parking there for 6 months.
Okay, continue.
I may have a little bit of error, margin of error in there. October 1st, 4:30, 16 non-resident cars. Today, at noon, 14 non-resident cars. It's a problem. So, just to get to my conclusion here, to me and to my neighbors, all of this has really just gone on too long, completely unacceptable. And you simply cannot have a flow of short-term 20-something employees and expect this not to happen when the business right sits next to a neighborhood.
Yeah. Ms. Haverford, if I just maybe real quick, you were talking about your interactions with Ms. Stover here. It actually sounds like the two of you actually get along, and that overall she's a good.
I don't really know her.
Okay.
I actually saw her. I saw her walking around the neighborhood with a clipboard, and I saw her from behind, and I kind of thought she might have been lost, so I went up to ask her if she needed help. That's how we engaged in conversation, and then I found out who she was and that she was kind of policing the neighborhood. But really, her efforts are in vain because those kids are not going to stop parking there. And also, to attest to the parking survey, it was a very large error not to have surveyed the neighborhood because that's really where the problem is. But the day that you did it last week was one of the days that in the morning they were being shoved over there. So you kind of did the wrong day because that's when all the cars went over there. They're normally all in our neighborhood. I visit the north part of that lot quite frequently, and I've never seen more than 7 cars parked there on any visit there, and in that lot at least 2-3 times a week.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
And just a moment, please. Mr. Chairman, if we could limit whatever's been already testimony's been on the record, I think that would help speed things up. Because if all the complaints are the same, we can stipulate that this person here will indicate that parking is not going well on her street.
Well, I have many things to discuss other than.
All we can do is encouragement.
Yeah.
Comments, we can't stop anyone from coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there in my opening statement. All persons who have an interest in a case, either as a petitioner or a member of the public, either supporting or opposing the petition, will be given a chance to speak on the record and express his or her point of view.
Okay.
Now, I can encourage that if anybody else is going to come up and say kind of the exact same thing, that parking is at a premium, the employees of Unifin are not acting appropriately, etc. That's fine. You know, if you want to raise your hand and concur with what your other neighbors have said, that would be fine. But you know, I'm not going to stop you from not being able to say your piece, but in the sake of expediency, it would be better. So.
My name is Julie Jernberg. My husband and I own 2 houses in the 51 block of Brooks.
Could you spell your last name?
Jernberg.
Okay. Thank you.
And this has been a nightmare since April. Anytime any one of the Unifin employees, gets a ticket because they're parked next to the houses that have fire plugs, we are verbally accosted. I've been screamed at, sworn at. One day I came home, sitting in my house. My dogs start going a little nuts in the house we live in. I get up, I look out the living room window. There's a Unifin employee, and I know it's a Unifin employee because he paces back in front of my house smoking, standing on my lawn between the tree and my house, looking in my living room window. I'm there by myself. That's an act of intimidation to me. It is inappropriate, and I know you said he didn't want people rehashing inappropriate, but you're on my property. He scared the living daylights out of me. Okay? I started screaming at him, and he took off and got in his car and drove off, and it's one of the cars that we see every day. The rental unit, we had to take our fence down because the employees are constantly leaning, pushing, pulling, and hanging their crap on it when they're out there doing whatever they're doing. It was fine 6 months ago. We had to take it down a couple of weeks ago because they had destroyed a fence. That's rude, crude, and socially unacceptable to me. That's my property that got damaged. The parking was still unreasonable today. They eat food and leave it in our lawns.
I'm tired of picking up their cigarette butts. I have one guy that I have a picture of on my phone every day, back and forth, in front of my house, puts his coffee mug on the fire hydrant and starts swearing at people on the phone. Throws the cigarette into my yard, lights another one. Continues pacing. I don't know when this guy works because he's always in front of my house. So I don't appreciate the trash and the cigarette butts all over my property. My renter has a 2.5 and a 5-year-old child. She's a stay-at-home mom right now. They just moved in. You know when it's warm out and they have all your windows open? Boy, are these children learning some colorful language. And children repeat everything they hear, including the F-bomb. Child goes to school, repeats what it heard on the street. Guess who gets a phone call? Mom. Not cool. Not cool at all. I pay residential taxes to live in a residential neighborhood. Well, I understand there is no permit parking at this time on our street. This is not fair to the residents that pay our Cook County taxes. It just isn't fair. And I've been there for 26, 27 years now. Always played by the rules. Always did a good job with my lawn, with my home. I don't appreciate what's going on in my neighborhood. The disrespect of these people swearing, let alone swearing at me because you got a ticket. It's not my fault you're stupid enough to park next to a fire hydrant. Do the math, okay? Why are you yelling at me? You were the one that parked the car there. I didn't move it there. Well, you called the cops on us. I'm at work. How did I call the cops on you? I'm at my job. I'm over 20 minutes away. I don't know when she got the parking ticket. One lady has yelled at me twice about her parking tickets. Like, you didn't want them the first time? Really? So, I'm sorry, but Unifin is not a good neighbor to the residents. I have nothing personal against the Stovers. We've met them before. I'm not trying to be mean to you, Mr. and Mrs. Stover. I'm really not. But if you had to live in my house or on this block, things would be different. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll make this quick.
So, it's all right, not a problem. Again, sir, if you please tell us your name, spell us
Tony.
your name for
First name Tony, last name Aziz, A-Z-I-Z. I live at 5117 Suffield Court. And like I said, I'm going to make this real fast and easy. Pretty much everything that's been said, no parking, people smoking cigarettes, smoking marijuana, they've done it. I have it also on video as well, where they actually take their cigarette butts, fling it in my lawn. Called the cops. My neighbors who have the driveway, there's a fire hydrant, covered it up. They park there, they don't care. I call the cops, they come, they get ticketed. One time they even parked facing the wrong side. So instead of facing eastbound, they're facing westbound on the south side or south, whatever. Not to do with directions. Loud music, stuff like that. Couple questions I just wanted to ask the guys, but I'll ask you guys so they can ask them. The picture of the street that you guys posted up, just curious what time of day it was, because I'm sure like everybody else, we all have jobs, so maybe that's why it's empty. And then also the gentleman said that he asked his people to park across the street, so they don't park on residential. Obviously they didn't listen and they're not going to, and they're going to continue to park there. And you can also check. I've also showed the video to the village and to the police, and they've been out there to ticket and to see and trash. And also I have an older grandma who lives with us, and she can't, we have to double park like she said, to walk her inside and then move our cars. And it doesn't matter what time of the day it is, it's always constant, because I live literally, the place right there, right next to it, right across the street. And they throw their trash and all that fun stuff. So it is a headache. It's never was before. Recently it has been, and it's just a big inconvenience for us. I mean, we all pay, they don't pay. And we pay to live there, and we have to park 2 blocks away. Not something we want to do. We come home from work, we're exhausted, we just want to go straight into our house, not hike it at 2 blocks. Or go park by her, because I've actually parked by her house a couple times. And I don't like doing that because it was raining a few times. But that's all I have to say. You know, it's pretty much the same thing as everybody. Y'all want the proof? Forms 847-912-2051. I don't pick up, call them. I'll leave a voicemail. I'll call you back.
It's on the record.
That's
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's fine. I got
Very great candidates.
You know what? I live, you have my phone number. Okay. You guys have a good
All
one.
right, thank you, Mr. Aziz. Very candid of you.
Hello, my name is Jim Harold, Herold,
Okay.
and I live at 8952 Laramie Avenue in Skokies. And I'm not going to repeat what's already been said. I do have a couple of long-term parkers in front of my house, which is okay. I need practice in parallel parking. But I just had a question, and really this is for the Unifin partners. And I was going to ask if you plan to expand your business and grow.
Can I ask it? We'll ask him that question
yeah,
during the
yeah.
rebuttal. Well,
Okay.
I'll make sure we ask him. Any questions you have, tell us right now.
Right, yeah, well, that was my question. Okay, so if you need 20 more employees, are we back here again? Or are we talking about a solution here? Or I'm a little puzzled about the whole situation. Because if you want to continue to expand, I don't know how this is going to solve anything. But anyway,
You got a good point.
I'll finish.
Okay, while Mr. Harold's writing down this information, is there anybody else at all, or? Come on up, yeah. So you're totally within your rights.
Just have a few things. My name's Annie Rutherford.
Okay.
I live on Laramie also.
Okay.
And I didn't even think about if just whatever the possible solutions might be. If there's no parking on Grove, it would push the other people onto our streets in Laramie and Suffield Court. And we don't have driveways. I don't know if you could tell from the overhead pictures, but there's like 1 or 2 of us in the area have driveways, so we all have to rely on street parking. And some of it has, some of it has garages, some of us don't, so we've got to consider that as well. And I'm really, really concerned about the parking across at the CTA lot, because there's times we'll be taking the CTA ourselves, and it's kind of scary crossing Grosse Pointe there. So I'd be really, really concerned about that, the employees crossing Grosse Pointe Road. I'm concerned about that as well. So those are just my statements.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, man.
Hi, my name is Jackie Gutensky. It's Pitensky. I'm at 5149 Suffield Court. Can't talk right at the same time.
That's okay.
Can't multitask. Anyway, I was going to say what Annie said. To be honest, these people are human. Why would they walk across the street, a big street like Grosse Pointe, to park their car, when they could just pull and go into a side street and park there? I worked in Skokie, close to Lincolnwood. We had limited parking. I get a park on the street. But we're only talking like 5 or 10 cars, not 60. And I got yelled at by people. And I told all the police if you have to. There's nothing I can do. The parking lot, I've gone through there a lot of times, especially as being repaved, because I thought it was insane. I'm on Suffield Court near Laramie. I've been there 26 years. Never, ever had a problem parking the car. Couldn't park the car. Elderly people came over. Now this is almost a joke. They had to call me from their car so I could pick them up and bring them to my house and then drive them back. That's how bad it was. When you drive into the parking lot where you have people double parking, why should they double park? Let's just park on the street, and that's human nature. And you can have 50 places across the street, but people are going to do what's good for them. They're not going to care about anybody else. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
How many actual employees are there? I never really got a clear
picture of that on Unicef today? We got a clear picture of 2012.
I believe you said over 100.
Well, over 100 is a little ambiguous, I guess that's what I was getting at.
I can ask.
Anybody else for a comment? Speak now or forever hold your peace, as they say. If not, that's fine. Don't feel like you're compelled that you have to. Sir, I've never asked what your impressions are on this case. Being that this is your case, you are presenting it. I think I have a general idea of how you feel already, but
I'll tell you, I feel for the people. I really do. I've been there 5 times. Tonight being the 6th. I know what it's like to not be able to park in front of your house, because I couldn't do that for a year because of a company that's expanded rapidly, and we finally got permit parking, and then one day everybody got tickets, and the next day they were all gone. And then 2 months later, the company was gone because they didn't have enough spaces for their people in their lots. When I went to take a look here, and I saw what I saw, and the guy talking on the cell phone, swearing a blue streak, and smoking, and then getting in his car and blasting the music, and I pull out my camera, and the guy closes it up and takes off. I feel for you. Unifin says they're growing. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And if there's no place to park now, just imagine when there's more employees, they'll be parking on your lawn. So, yeah, especially blocking the driveways, parking in front of. I've seen it. I've been there. I just keep coming back, and I just keep shaking my head and saying, I can't believe this. I love businesses in Skokie. I'm an advocate for businesses in Skokie. I want businesses in Skokie. But in our zoning, it says right here that the variance which is sought will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the property of those people entitled to notice for the hearing purposes. That's right in our code. And as far as I'm concerned, you people just told me that it's injurious and also will not substantially diminish your property value. That's in there. I see it diminishing the property value. I see it, the health, safety, and welfare of these people. Again, if this was on Dempster Street and they needed a parking lot and they needed 2 spaces, you can have 2 spaces. But in a residential area where you need 50 right now and maybe 100 later, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for the neighbors, and it's not going to work for your business in the long run. I want you to grow. I want you to expand. But you can't do it where you are. So that's my...
Okay. All right, thank you, Alan. Is there any more questions for the petitioners, or? Yeah, of course, you get to have a rebuttal. And actually, there's something I'd like to propose as well in this case. Yeah. We're kind of dealing with 2 different things here in reality. I mean, we're talking about one request, but there's the different components involved with it. The one being, of course, the obvious matter, the number of parking space requirement. But we're also looking at the 13-foot one-way south drive aisle and the 16-foot 6-inch aisle aisle width as opposed to the 14-foot minimum required and the 17-foot minimum aisle width as required by code. So what I would like to do, because I believe this would help in your being able to lease it in order to get your more spaces in your lot, would you be adverse to the suggestion that perhaps we bifurcate this?
Yes.
Council?
Yes.
Okay, so that we will have, say, 2018-09ZA being the parking space requirement, okay? Which is under section 118-218 of the Skokie Code. That's the parking requirement number. And then we'll make 2018-09ZB the request for the 13-foot one-way south drive aisle and the 16-foot 6-inch aisle width, as proposed by your plan. Okay,
that's acceptable.
All right, great, thank you. I think, yeah, take your time.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention one thing when I was up there, and I don't really know in terms of floor plan how relevant this is, but the floor plan that they have up there, the portion of the building.
Could you please go to the podium? Because that way too we have it on camera. We can't get you on camera when you're sitting in the audience.
The portion of the building that had the build out to accommodate the call center, I was told when I was taken into the space, I don't know, it was probably June or so, that there were 200 workstations in there, and I was in the space and I saw the cubicles, and that's not reflected on the floor plan. It's the open office space and cubicles. And they have the floor plan up there that's not. And to that point, I don't believe that there's proper egress from the space. I did do a little bit of code research. I'm not a building inspector, but I do work in construction and have for a very long time. Following the IBC, there's a little bit of a gray area, and in order to have a certificate of occupancy, it's actually up to the authority having jurisdiction because it falls in a gray area. There are 2 exit doors. They do not have exit devices on it. I don't know if it has proper signage inside. I do think they do leave it unlocked during the day. But I would have quite a concern about the number of people in there with just 2 single-door exits and no exit devices to egress the space.
Can I comment on that?
That's not correct.
Yeah, please go ahead, Brian.
That's a building code and a building department and fire department issue. That is not a zoning issue at this time. That's for the building department and the fire department.
Well, they made reference that the fire department had actually approved.
The fire department has been in the site. That's for the fire department and the building inspectors to handle. In regards to the floor plan, this is what was submitted by the petitioner. We've never been provided a floor plan showing the number of cubicles and desks and seats in the space.
Yeah, there's 5 exits from that, but this one's not 2.
There's 2 that face the parking lot.
It's not relevant to this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is kind of irrelevant to the situation.
No, scoot back.
Yeah, scoot back, that would be fine. Thank you. Okay, council, would you like to go ahead with any sort
Yes, sir.
of closing statement you may have?
Thank you.
Yes.
I want to first thank everyone for staying till 9:38 tonight to hear this request. And to the public who came and their civic duty expressed their displeasure with the situation. Tonight we heard a lot of complaints about parking in the neighborhoods. That's and the kind of the actions of purported employees in the neighborhood. I think that's kind of the gist of what we heard tonight. Well, I think we also heard testimony that the petitioner does not want parking in the neighborhood. They don't want this activity in the neighborhood either. That's why the petitioner is asking for that aisleway approval, both of the portions of the second part of the bifurcated request. That will alleviate some of the parking congestion at the property and will alleviate some of the purported parking in the neighborhood. So we ask that that request be granted. With respect to the first portion of the bifurcated request, petitioner does, like I said, the petitioner does not want parking in the neighborhood. That's why, and before I go on, the aisleway part of the request was, there's no, it has been recommended by staff. I guess there's no objection by staff, I should say, and the fire department and the police department are both okay with that. But with respect to the number of parked cars, petitioner resurfaced the lot to create more spaces. Petitioner asks for 30 spaces in the Skokie Swift lot to alleviate the concerns of the neighbors, to get people out of the neighborhood so that they're happy and so that Unifin's happy. It seems like a workable solution to utilize a mostly empty lot where the petitioners could pay the village to rent spots in that lot. And in order to completely keep people out of the neighborhood, and the petitioners have actually asked for this before, is for permit parking in the neighborhood. That would prevent a lot of what we've heard about tonight, where people purportedly from the office spaces are going over onto the residential streets. So we would ask on the record that that be looked into. And then I think finally, we have to reckon with the fact that this is a commercially zoned property. This is permitted commercial use. So even if the application tonight gets denied, the commercial activity still occurs in this neighborhood, and that's just the fact that there's an adjacent residential neighborhood next to a commercial property. So my clients, I think, would leave you with this. They have a right to use their property in a way that the village deems acceptable. It is a commercial property, and they would like to retain a client for a commercial purpose. They would like to create creative solutions to alleviate the parking concerns, and they would like to continue to be good citizens, good residents, and good business owners in Skokie. So with that, we'd like to thank you for your time, and I think that's all we have.
Okay. All right.
A couple quick questions for you, just for the citizen questions.
Yeah. Go ahead, counsel.
I have the owner. Do you know how many employees there are right now at the Unifin?
I don't know exact number, but my estimate is like 130, I believe.
Do you have intentions of expanding that number in the near future?
That's total. Now we are kind of like, after all this, we believe that if you guys, grant the CO, we have to definitely, stop whatever is necessary. I mean, there could be a need, but I believe that, we might intend somewhere else or something. I'm really not sure. Because it's a business, it comes and go, right? So if you have more accounts, you definitely need more people. So on that space, I don't think it would be possible.
Taking this process out of the picture, would you expand your business if you could?
Yeah, like any business, I would expand. If there is no issue, I would definitely expand if I get more business, and it's just nature of the business.
Would you go somewhere else though? So that you have more space for, like have an auxiliary location somewhere? If all of a sudden you got 10 more contracts, couldn't you open another space somewhere else?
If I can afford it, if there is because there is a rent, so there is another thing. So you want me to operate in 2 spaces,
yeah,
2 places.
We don't want you to expand here, but we want you to expand, so you could expand in another location.
Yeah, well, definitely I can talk to my business partners and maybe we can get back to you with what we can, what our projections are. I can tell you a little bit, but I don't know if that's gonna,
It was just a citizen question,
yeah.
That's why we're asking.
You see, this is like fluid, business. So it comes and, we can grow, we can lose the business. And then what's happened back in like 4 or 5 years ago, we kind of lost it almost all, and then we came back and stuff like that. They know. So I can't answer that.
You wouldn't expand additional employees if the village determined that 160 whatever spaces they were going to grant, that's what then
I
we
mean,
would-
yeah,
we would
no,
expand
I
the-
wouldn't go over. If you give me like, you know, for current, you know, people that I have, I can give you a number, you give me a permit, I wouldn't go further. I would, because I don't think, you know, then I would be a problem.
Thank you very much.
No problem. No, I don't want to be a problem.
Before your vote.
One of the things that one of the parameters of also.
What do you call the bifurcation on the strip? The 17 and 14 foot driveway.
What do you call Yes, right.
It's aisles for parking lots.
It's an allowable variation because it has to deal with parking lot striping, it's an allowable variation. The number.
I'm sorry, everyone, just had a little legal
The
there.
number of parking spaces are allowable to vary, but the drive aisles, parking space size, aisle widths are also an allowable variation. So this would be aisle widths in a parking lot. It could be worded that way.
Okay, I got it.
And just because we've had testimony on other subjects, I'll just remind the board that we're focusing only on parking spaces and aisle width, and you are to consider the staff report, testimony you heard tonight, and you should leave your personal experiences out of it and stick to what's in the record and the sworn testimony.
Anything else that you want to add? Actually, Counselor, I had something that I wanted to ask you real quick. When you were just up at the podium, you said that that the analysis went out to the different departments within the village and nobody disagreed with the parking allowance?
No, just with the aisle width issue.
Oh, the aisle width. Oh, yeah.
So there was a comment made about, you know, an emergency vehicle can't turn around if there's the striping in the middle of the aisle. But that was determined not to be an issue by the fire department. So we're willing to,
There are some stipulations that we would like to have addressed.
Correct. There's the turnaround space. Whatever the fire department requires, I think, is as much as they need is what you can give them.
What we see here and what the staff recommendations are, and I'll read this verbatim just for the sake of clarification so that there's no misunderstanding. One parking lot tree per 15 motor vehicle parking spaces be provided for section 118-233 subsection E. B, the two northernmost parking spaces on each side of the east drive aisle be removed and striped for no parking. C, the parking lot must be in compliance with section 118-81 subsection C subsection 1 stormwater control requirements. D, all signage that assigns parking spaces to specific tenants in violation of section 118-209 must be removed, which I think was addressed. And then E, ADA parking spaces must be restriped and ADA compliant. So,
you agree to those conditions.
You agree to those conditions?
And some of them have been met already.
Okay, all right. Just
use the signage to 10% and the ADA. There was a little bit of misunderstanding for the construction guy. He put some circles in the wrong spots. Those are gone.
Yeah, we agree to condition that. I don't think we have any other choice.
Yeah. If you were amenable to those conditions,
yes, sir.
Okay, great.
The Community Development Department and Traffic Engineering came up with a recommendation with those, and the fire department with those conditions too.
With those 5 conditions. Okay, great. That's what we like to hear. However, and I'll just say that the case as far as the deficient parking spaces, nobody that I see from the police department, traffic engineering, community development, nobody's in agreement to recommend that moving forward. So, that being said, any more questions? Yeah, Commissioner Kirkpatrick?
I just have a comment. And I believe that Council Stover the owner of the company. I believe you all have good intentions, but none of you can control the employees. That's clear. And I don't think giving you 100 spaces in the Skokie Smith parking lot will change that. And I think that there's plenty of empty office space in Skokie for you to find, additional locations without hurting the Stovers or hurting yourself. And for whatever you would pay for those parking spaces, that money could be put to use renting additional space in an empty building with a huge parking lot. But nobody can control the people that work for you. You can't control them. I don't think giving them tickets is work. I don't think it's fair to make a permit parking area. This is not, the Gold Coast where, people are the city. My son lives in a place with permit parking. I hate it. I have to run upstairs and get a permit, run downstairs and make sure I get it before the police come. It's annoying. We live in Skokie. We shouldn't have to have that. So, I would just think about what you're asking and what you could actually deliver on, even if you got it, which chances slim to none, I'm afraid, from hearing everybody. Even if you got it, you couldn't control it. So I think you really need to think about another solution to make yourself happy and to make your neighbors happy.
Okay, great. Any more comments, questions, anything else? Well, Commissioner Brewster is madly typing away his motion. Okay. So if there's no other questions, comments, etc., then the chair will go ahead and entertain a motion.
Okay. We're first going to vote on the bifurcated motion of the striping in the lot. Okay? Okay, Mr. Chairman, I propose the following in the granting of a variance to the petitioner as follows. Stouffer Partners number 2 is the owner of the lot described in case number 2018-09ZB, as in boy, for the property located at 8930-8950 Grosse Point Road, Suites 400 and 600, Skokie, Cook County, Illinois. That the said lot is that the lot is a plotted lot of record and is abutted by buildings on the north and south. That a determination has been made in which the petitioner's request is consistent with the majority of findings of fact stated in the Village of Skokie zoning chapter. I therefore propose that a variance be granted to the petitioners for giving failure to comply with the requirements of the zoning ordinance of the Village of Skokie as amended to aisle width for parking lots, with conditions as a 1 parking lot treat for 50 motor vehicles parking spaces be provided per section 118-223E. The 2 northernmost parking spaces on each side of the east drive aisle be removed and striped for no parking. C, parking lot must be in compliance with section 118-81C1 stormwater control requirements. That all signage that assigns parking spaces to specific tenants in violation of section 118-209 must be removed. And the ADA has already been taken care of.
ADA has been taken care of.
Okay. That the petitioner be granted the variance for a 13-foot one-way south drive aisle and a 16-foot 6-inch aisle width rather than the 14-foot minimum one-way drive aisle and 17-foot minimum aisle width as required by section 118-218, 118-212C1B1, and 118-212A 1F of the zoning chapter of the Village of Skokie in a B2 commercial district, that all other codes and ordinance of the Village of Skokie shall be fully, strictly complied with.
Let's just amend that to strike section 118, 218, that's a parking space.
Yeah, 218.
No, actually keep that.
Yeah. Okay, yes, sir. Okay, so striking 218.
Okay, great. We have a motion to approve with the 5 conditions. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Franklin will give you a second. Okay, so we're voting to approve the variations with the aisles, with the aisles, the aisle with conditions. So I'll go ahead and call the roll.
Sir?
Yes.
One point of clarification for the village staff.
Okay.
So under section 118-209, assigned parking spaces, is the village's interpretation that this is a lot serving multiple uses, or just the non-residential uses where 10% of the signage is permitted?
I interpret required parking spaces shall not be assigned in non-residential parking lots serving multiple uses.
But the preceding paragraph, the preceding sentences for non-residential uses, no more than 10% of required off-street parking shall be assigned.
Of required. That's the key word, is required. Once you exceed the required parking spaces, if there is 2 uses that require 50 parking spaces and they provided 60, they could then assign those other non-required parking spaces. For our code, there's 222 required, 150 something provided now, 167 proposed.
Correct. So there would be a number of which they could share, which they could have no signage.
If they had excess parking spaces. If the required parking spaces on the site were 50, 60 provided, they could then assign 10%. They could assign all of the non-required and 10% of the required.
So they're not permitted any signage, any reserved space?
And for our analysis and interpretation, they're requiring more than what's provided on the site. The second line, the required parking spaces shall not be assigned to non-residential parking lots serving multiple uses.
I think my client just wants to say that there are some very elderly clients who are in need of close access
Both
to the...
Wellbot and the Chicago ENT Center, they have very feeble clients. They need to have those 2 tenants in particular really need to have.
One recommendation has been, and this has been done with other parking lots, is number the spaces, certain spaces, 1A, whatever, and then you let your tenants know internally without assigning them. There's no parking is limited for 2 tenants in these parking spaces.
Okay.
You cannot get it assigned. The code says these requirements shall not be assigned. If you number them, other tenants have used numbered system to do that where these are
We'll talk to you
specifically
later
assigned.
about how to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we could, traffic engineering, Samantha Maximilian.
And I just want to recognize Mr. Augustine. He's been working very hard on this case for a long time, so he's done a Herculean job.
Yeah, we're very appreciative of their staff. We find them to be extremely professional. They work well with others, and we
might have
value them highly.
We might have a disagreement as to the adjudication matter, but that's neither here nor there.
You have a very busy span to play, though.
Thank you.
Okay, getting back to the motion. So we will keep that motion in there to approve with conditions. We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. So the chair will go ahead and call the roll now. Commissioner Jacobson.
Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin.
Aye.
Commissioner Arden. Aye. Commissioner Kirkpatrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Gerstner.
Aye.
And the chair will vote aye. So in the matter of 2018-09ZB, the motion to approve with conditions been carried 7-0. Corporation Counsel, what does the petitioner need to know from here on out?
For this variance, we'll prepare a covenant running with the land that will require the property owner's signature when we're done drafting it. Typically takes us about a week or two to get it over to you.
Okay.
But obviously, contingent upon the next vote, you can decide what you want to do with that variance.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so now we're going back to the 2018-09Z subsection A, which is, if there's any other questions, comments, and this is for the parking number of spaces requirement. Okay. If there's no other questions, comments, etc., then the chair will entertain a motion on that one.
Mr. Chairman, I propose the following in denying a variance to the petitioner as follows. That Stouffer Partners number 2 LP is the owner of the lot described in case number 2018-09ZA for the property located at 8930 and 8950 Grosse Pointe Road, Skokie, Cook County, Illinois. That said lot is a plotted lot of record and is abutted by single-story building on the north and the south. That a determination has been made in which the petitioner's request is not consistent with the majority of the findings of fact as stated in the Village of Skokie zoning chapter. I therefore propose that the variance be denied to the petitioner for giving failure to comply with the requirements of the zoning ordinance of the Village of Skokie as amended as to off-street parking. That the petitioner be denied the variation to provide 167 proposed off-street vehicle parking spaces rather than the minimum 222 off-street motor vehicle parking spaces as required by section 118218. Yeah.
So strict.
Right, strict, yes. Of the zoning chapter of the Skokie Village Code in a B2 commercial district, that all other codes and ordinances of the Village of Skokie shall be fully and strictly complied with.
Okay. We have a motion to deny on 2018-09Z subsection A. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay.
So a yes vote is to deny.
Yeah.
A no vote is to grant.
Right. So we're voting on the motion, which is to deny. So, Commissioner Schott, I believe, seconded that motion.
A no vote is not.
A no vote is.
No, it doesn't grant it.
Right, it just denies the motion.
Denies them, yeah.
Right, okay. So, so that being said, we'll go the other way this time. Commissioner Arden?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Kirkpatrick?
Aye.
Commissioner Gerster?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobson?
Aye.
Commissioner Schott?
Yes.
And Commissioner Franklin?
Aye.
And the chair will vote aye. So in the case of 2018-09ZA, the motion to deny has been approved, 7-0. So Corporation Counsel, what does petitioner need to know from here on out?
This is considered a final hearing body, so if you were intending on challenging this, you have to file an action in the circuit court for administrative review, and I don't need to remind you there's timing deadlines for that.
And when would the copy of the transcript or the videotape be available?
I believe the videotape could be available tomorrow or Friday at the latest. Typically, I believe it's worked on the next day, at the latest Friday. I'll confirm. If you want to email me tomorrow, I'll get a confirmation on that.
Okay. And that'll be transmitted by email then, or?
I'll let you know. I know we've actually printed, we get people pick up some of these, we possibly can email us.
Okay.
If worst case, somebody will be able to pick up a DVD.
Okay. So we have permission to strike?
It has to be signed.
Exactly, after we prepare the.
Because the striping doesn't meet the code, so the covenant would have to be signed first.
I'll give you my card. Thank you.
So how soon will we have relief in our neighborhood?
Hold on one second, excuse me. I believe we had a question from the audience. So when do they start seeing relief?
The Village of Skokie has the owner and the tenant in an administrative hearing. They have both been issued citations for having Unifin on site without a certificate of occupancy. The next hearing date is Friday, October 12th. That's the original citation was issued in June. The first hearing date was in July. It's been continued. They applied to the zoning board. They were granted a continuation to the October date, which is the second Friday. That's the next administrative hearing date.
We were not granted a continuance.
There is another hearing in October.
Okay, because we never got the orders mailed to us.
Okay, that did follow up with legal.
I have.
Anything else? All right. Okay, thank you very much. Do we want to just keep rolling? Yeah, keep rolling. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, no worries. We'll give the room a few minutes to clear, because I'm sure a lot of you people would like to leave, and then we'll go ahead and immediately hear the case, the next case, the 2018-08C.
Any questions or do you have any feedback? Yeah, thank you.
Look, it's a bad problem having easier.
I know very well. Well, you know,
well, with modern technology, we can have the offset call center.
You want the variance? They usually, you know.
I know, they've got it. You've been through some stable.
And it's just PowerPoint I will print out to put. So I have to get a PowerPoint statement. The PowerPoint I'll print out.
And you do get a copy of the traffic. I'll get you.
Oh, yeah. Those, yeah. I got the packet.
That gentleman there in the middle. Jack.
Sorry to keep you waiting for so long.
I've never seen this before. It's very
informative.
So are the administrative hearings, actually. I was amazed when I went to that.
Do I just start up there? Not go in person?
Well, yes.
Do you want me to stay in the audience so I can?
You can heck give a moral support.
Yeah, right.
Thank you all.
If there are any other interested parties,
Yeah, do fresh sheet.
There's a sign-in sheet if there are any interested parties. If not, that'll save the line.
Okay, Steve Franklin wants to get up here and say something.
Thank you.
Talk about the break. Yeah, great. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now after much consternation, we're going to go ahead and go with what should have been our first case tonight, but hopefully the petitioner can appreciate why we moved in the second place now. 2018-08Z, 7321 Ridgeway Avenue, and this case was signed to Commissioner Kirkpatrick, so Sharon, the floor is yours.
Talking as fast as you can. 2018-08Z, 7321 Ridgeway Avenue, 7321 Ridgeway LLC requests a variation in order to convert warehouse space to office space while providing 28 off-street motor vehicle parking spaces rather than the minimum 41 off-street motor vehicle parking spaces as required by section 118-218 of the zoning chapter of the Skokie Village Code in an M3 industry district. I have the petitioner's statement. As a matter of introduction, I am both the managing partner of 7321 Ridgeway LLC, the entity who owns the building, and the president of CIC Plus, its own tenant. As such, this is being written from the context of the business that occupies the space. When we purchased the building in 2007, it was with the intention of providing ample room to expand when our business grew. We have a stable population of employees in Skokie. Our Skokie office is now one of 3 offices in the U.S. We work with a lot of web-based technology to provide a service to payroll and human resource departments throughout the country. During our growth, we've become more collaborative within our teams and we improve space for that purpose. What is unique about our variance request is that we are not really adding office space in the traditional sense. It is more of communal use space for our office space. Our goal is not to increase the number of employees at our location, but to improve the usage of the space in our building. Below is our explanation for the various findings and how we are consistent with them. Limitation on use. The findings in the code suggest that since we are converting our space out of a warehouse usage, that we will be increasing our staff and therefore need more parking, and the feeling is that this could negatively impact our neighbors. We have very good relationships with our neighbors and do not park on each other's properties. Most of us around here are privately owned, family businesses that understand the rights and obligations of being a good neighbor. Without this variance, there cannot be other uses. However, for our business, a lack of variance would force us to move, as this location can no longer accommodate the needs of my staff. The need is purely to help my staff work better. This drawing shows a new area designed for small groups to sit and collaborate in a casual environment. An increased gym to give more options for staff to stay in shape, and a meeting space large enough for us all to meet in a single location for lectures. None of these are available to us in our current layout. This makes coming to work at the office more desirable and allows our team to communicate better. Warehouse space was part of our original building, but our desire to change that usage only happened in the past few years when the nature of our internal communication needs changed. Our current parking allows ample space for existing staff. We are not planning to add more staff in our Skokie office. The new space will not have any new desks for staff, just shared areas together. Therefore, our immediate parking will not increase. We are in a commercial area. The modified space usage is not going to impact the neighborhood. This is a necessary enhancement for our staff that will allow our business to flourish. Our building has improved greatly since its purchase. We bring 35 to 40 people into Skokie on most weekdays, and none of our staff lives in Skokie. My staff are all professionals who understand and demonstrate respect for the property of our neighbors. Our building is similar to many of the other spaces in our part of the village. We are confident about how this new space will be used. Please see attached architectural drawing that shows a scale drawing of where our furniture currently ordered on home variants will be placed. We are willing to obligate ourselves to some type of stipulation that our desire for variance is now used to add office or cubicle spaces into our warehouse. For reference purposes, since the moment we purchased the building in 2007, we have operated it following all codes, including updated electrical, added sprinkler system, alarm, fire, etc. Our building was transformed from a rodent-infested food manufacturing facility to a professional office, drawing staff from across the city into Skokie. Without the variance for parking as mentioned above, we will not be able to use this building and we will be forced to move out at a loss of more than $1.5 million. We are very happy being here in Skokie and request this variance to allow us to remain. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Jeffrey A. Collins.
All right, great. Anything else you want to add, Sharon? Or
there are stipulations from staff, which I will. Are you aware of those?
None of them conflict with our desires.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was just going to read it into the motion, but if you.
Yes, the petitioner has provided a copy of the staff report, I believe, Monday.
Okay, so as long as you know what those stipulations are.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we. Well, we'll go ahead and we'll give him on record agreeing to the conditions. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Hi. How are you? Can you tell us your name and spell it so we may have it for the record?
My name is Jeffrey Cohen. Jeffrey Cohen.
Okay, great. And please tell us why we're all here tonight.
I've gathered you all here tonight so that you can sweat and. I have a fantastic staff, all professionals. Payroll people, human resource people, benefits people, but a lot of technology folks. And what can I tell you? Times have changed. In the old days, you just you get a room like this and you fill it with cubes this big, and you put people in there, and they have red lights, and the computer guys all have little pocket protectors, and that's not really how people work today.
It's like something out of Dilbert.
Exactly. It's not that's kind of how you think, like, a whole bunch of dorky computer programs. My staff is like, they're very bright. I hire much smarter people than I am. And as we've grown, we've also added management layers. So you have to talk to people, which you didn't used to have to do. It just used to be doers. So the dynamics of the whole company have changed, and as we've been looking for talent, so we grew into a small town outside of Tacoma called Puyallup, which is an Indian name, my Native American name. So we've got, you guys been there. It's a great town. It's very blue collar. It's very Midwestern. So they fit with us really well. Like, we have no one in Seattle because the personalities don't work. We're all Midwestern folks. We have a small office in Indianapolis and Broad Ripple, fun area there. We've got about 25 people in Puyallup, and that office is growing. It's not necessarily less expensive than here, but there's a center of gravity over there now, so it's great. It works for us, and we've got the core management team is here in Chicago, and core service team is here, and those are the folks that when you have a problem with your payroll file or something, you call them up. So we take data. I don't know, this is kind of interesting for me. I sell W-2s for a living, so we actually take data from very big companies. So anyone that's a major company in the malls around here in Dempster, if you go Best Buy, Target, big name companies, Fortune 500 companies, we take their data and we put it online for their employees. So their employees that have, typically those companies have bad systems. With us, they can get their paycheck on their phone, and they can look at their W-2 or have it sunk into TurboTax for them, and a lot of other, boring payroll human resource type stuff. So one of you guys work for a very large company, and you're in payroll human resource and benefits, I can make your head spin. Outside of that, it's like really good for a living. Last year we printed about 17 million W-2s and ACA forms, Affordable Care Act forms. So we're huge fans, forget politics, we're huge fans of Affordable Care Act because that's what we do. We deal with this kind of compliance stuff. But anyway, the bottom line is that you can see from the picture, and thank you for putting this up on Brian, I appreciate it. I don't know what officially it is, but it's been very helpful guiding someone who has no clue what they're doing in this kind of world. W-2s, I can make your head spin, this stuff, no clue. We actually bought this building in 2007 at the top of the market. From, I don't know how, oh my gosh, right. It took us until this year to get back up to where we bought it for the base price. We also put in $1.5 million to make it look nice. I'm not quite sure how the laws in Skokie allowed the people to operate the business, the food business that was there when we bought the place. That's a different conversation. But here, maybe I can just point down the pointer with me, is that okay? Just real quick. So, the very top center, way up there, there's a little door that goes off our existing kitchen. That's the only way you're going to be able to get into this place from our staff, because we're super high security. All we deal with is social security numbers and dates of birth and things that people want to steal. This area is going to probably be used, this space up here, once a month. We don't have a room this big to put the staff in when they come. It used to be, when we first bought the place, we built for 6 offices and 10 cubes, and never gonna fill that space. No way. We have half the staff. We can't. Okay, so we have a lot more people now, and so we can't fit in the kitchen like we used to. And a lot of them are, double working families. So, and when you live out in Lake Villa or Buffalo Grove, whatever it is, so you're commuting to work, you're commuting from work, and you got kids in school, you don't work out, And so we push our staff real hard to go take time during the day. They work during the day. We have showers at the office, and we put those in right away. So we encourage them to just go get some kind of exercise. Go stretch. I don't care. Go do something. So we encourage that, and we figured that if we do this, we have a better chance of them doing it. But the main space, and then we have games. When the IT guys get together and start brainstorming, they like doing it over pool or foosball with a beer in their hand, whatever. The main space is this over here, and I'll just talk about that in a second. That's what we call our collaboration space, and I think kind of as the name suggests, it's designed, each of those little sections is designed for a different kind of collaboration. So number 1 up there is a booth. It's like I call it like a high-end like restaurant booth with big tall backs, and you go in there and you pretty much can't hear anything else that's going on. So you can even have like an HR, like employee to manager conversation there. Or the number 2, that's basically like this big table you guys have right here. It's basically that, a drop wider, and it's made so that you can be, the whole team can get together, and 8 is a pretty big team for us. So the whole team can get together and yell at each other, but look at each other at the same time, right? And 3 is, because we're a technology company, so you have to have a couch and a place to put your feet up. What can I tell you? That's what people think. And 5 is kind of the same thing as 3 from that perspective. 4 is a standing height. So you can stand up and do your work, and all this stuff is Wi-Fi all over the places, and there's monitors, and so people can come in, plug in, immediately be connected, and have that face-to-face conversation. And most importantly, Skype with our other people around the country. So even though we have offices, we've got staff. I think we're in 13 states now. So it's interesting. There's a lot of talent here in Chicago. There's also a lot of talent that's not in Chicago, and we just go for rock star talent. That's what we want to get. Wherever they are, I don't really care anymore. But we don't focus on scope. So the bottom line is, and I think this is pretty consistent with what I heard for 2 hours. To give you an idea, like when we had extra staff come in, we have a neighbor that moved in. Lisa, I'm blanking on his last name right now. On the end of our block, 2 doors down from us, and she's got 13 parking spaces. She's 3 employees. She's one of them. So I called her up and I said, I'll tell you what, let me use the 8 spaces inside your building. My staff this week. I'll make a donation wherever you want. And great, sounds great. That's kind of how we play. So normally we don't have a parking issue, but I knew that we're going to have extra need. So we just said, let's just take care of it. But even our other neighbors, even though we've got, we're a 16,000 foot building, so we've got officially 29 spaces, because there's a tree in one of them, but I learned today why I have to have a tree there. I guess 115, but we use our loading docks twice a year. We get paper in January, and sometimes we need a little bit more paper. We don't do all the printing there. That would be not possible. We use giant newspaper presses the size of like a football field.
The Tribune.
Exactly. It's R. Donnelly. We use with R. Donnelly.
Oh.
So, and these guys, they get going. They produce 22 W-2s a second. Like, oh my gosh. All right. Anyway, bottom line is that what we're asking for, we didn't realize we've gone through build now this is the 3rd time. The first time was we bought the building, cleaned it out, and took about 4,000 square feet, which was way more than we needed. We tried renting out the other spaces. We rented out about 6, couldn't rent out the other 6 for a while. Then eventually we took over the next 6, and now we're in 10. So this is the 2nd build we did. We did that a couple of years ago, figuring not a chance we're ever gonna, need this more than this. And then we've got a 6,000 square foot warehouse now, and that's what the other picture was. It's about 6,000 square feet, give or take, in my mind, because that's how the building used to work out for rent. So there's nothing that's going on there that's permanent addition of staff. I have news for you. You mentioned it, I think, Commissioner, to this gentleman that you don't want to be in a place where you don't have parking for your staff. It makes it very hard to work. It's true. I mean, we really couldn't expand too much more our daily staff. Just because it becomes too tight. When everybody comes in, there's a big day and everyone's coming in, we plan for it. And whatever, that's a limitation, but it only happens once every 3, 4, 5, 6 months that it's even an issue, so we don't really pay attention to it. It's not a lot of pain. So the goal here is to expand the use of our space, but not to expand what our needs are, and that's why the recommendations, I'm sorry if I'm being too verbose, but the recommendations that were presented didn't cause a problem for us because we don't mind having restrictions because we know what we're using the space for, and that's our intention. It's pretty single use right now. I mean, I think if we said we're going to do this build and in 2 years we really explode, we can't be here anymore, and we can't sell it like this either. Someone's going to walk in and go, sure, we'll buy it, we'll demo the whole thing, make a warehouse out of it, and we'll give you 50 cents in the dollar. Cost me a bit, I guess, but.
Were you ever in front of us before? Because this building looks familiar.
The building might have been.
I think the neighborhood was, that
Yeah,
a number of years ago, that area.
We bought it in 2007, yeah, there's a bunch that's changed hands. A lot of independent, a lot of people that own like one. We own, I guess ours is like five lots. A lot of neighbors have 1, 2, 3, whatever. So, and there's a lot of people that are converting them to small business. It's a great. I guess if you live on, I live in Chicago proper, right across the street from Evanston, Lincoln, Muskogee, like in the top quarter with the policeman, you know, that live by me. My wife's a Skokie girl, West Orange Park. I'm born in Indianapolis. My mom told me to go marry a girl from Skokie, so I married a girl from Skokie. You know, and this is my mommy. But
I like that. But that's great. While we can appreciate the whole life story sort of thing, it's irrelevant to what we're here for tonight. But that's awesome, and thank you very much. But that being said, we would like to hear what Commissioner Kirkpatrick has to say about your request.
Actually, when I looked at the space, I hadn't seen the staff recommendations. Those were my only concerns, and I think that the staff recommendations, you know, cover that. Is that I'm sure this parking is completely adequate for what you have now, and as long as it doesn't expand, I don't see it.
Mr. Cohen, you said you weren't familiar yet as to what those recommendations are, or
no, I read them. I did get them. Yeah, he was provided the staff report with recommendations, I believe, Monday.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, good. So you're okay with those the four conditions that go along with the approval of your request?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then when Commissioner Kirkpatrick makes her motion, then we will actually read those verbatim into the motion, so that there's no misunderstanding.
Great.
We'll address them at that time.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Anything else for the petitioner? As the previous zoning board of appeals chairman used to say, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to say something?
I think they all left.
Yeah, I think they all left, yes. If not, then the chair will go ahead and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I propose the following granting the variance to the petitioner as follows. That 7321 Ridgeway LLC is the owner of the lot described in case number 2018-08Z for the property located at 7321 Ridgeway, Skokie, Cook County, Illinois. That said lot is a plotted lot of record and is abutted by commercial buildings on the north and south. That a determination has been made in which the petitioner's request is consistent with the majority of the findings of fact as stated in the Village of Skokie zoning chapter. I therefore propose that a variance be granted to the petitioner for giving failure to comply with the requirements of the zoning ordinance of the Village of Skokie as amended as to off-street parking and loading requirements. That the petitioner be granted the variance in order to convert warehouse space to office space while providing 28 off-street motor vehicle parking spaces rather than the minimum 41 off-street parking spaces as required by section 118 of the zoning chapter of the Skokie Village Code in an N3 industry district, subject to the following. 1, the converted warehouse space, approximately 5,592 square feet, will be solely used for workplace amenities or short-term gathering spaces for employees, will only be used by existing staff with an occasional guest speaker, and will not be used in any way as a location for a workstation or office for the daily work of any employee. That the use of the fitness area is restricted to use only by the current employees working in the facility. If someone other than an employee of the subject site uses the fitness center, the area would be considered a health and fitness center, which is not a permitted or special use in the zoning district. 3, any violation of condition 1 or 2 will result in a revocation of the variance and the certificate of occupancy for the portion of the building that is the subject of this case. 4, the variance is only for the current occupant and is not transferable to any other user. That all other codes and ordinances of the Village of Skokie shall be fully and strictly complied with.
Okay.
For the record, Samantha Maximilian, traffic engineering, did update the parking analysis and are 29.
29. You know, I was going to ask that. I did see the differentiation of the one space, so it's actually 29. Okay. Okay, we have a motion to approve with the 4 conditions. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Franklin seconds the motion. So the chair will go ahead and take the roll. Commissioner Jacobson?
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin?
Aye.
Commissioner Arden.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Gerstner.
Aye.
And the chair will vote aye. So in the matter of 2018-08Z, the motion to a grant has been approved with conditions. So Corporation Counsel, what does petitioner need to know from here on out?
We'll prepare the covenant for the property owner's signature. Will probably be ready in 2 weeks. We'll notify you when it's ready.
First of all, thank you all very much. When can we, do we need that in order to get the contractor to put a shovel in?
To get the building permit, as I understand.
Yes, the permit, everything will get ready with the permit, but like you said, I believe you said you have furniture on hold.
I got everything on hold.
That can get ordered and delivered as proceeded.
So we're good to go.
Yes. The permit, once the covenant is signed, we can release the permit.
Great. Don't understand.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you.
Thank you for investing in Skokie, and thank you for your patience.
It's all good. All positive.
I hope you understand why we put you second.
I didn't understand it. I thought it was good education. I was like, I'm going to be quick. I hope. But I could see they were a little bit excited to get their.
Are we still on the record?
Oh, yeah, right. Yes, thank you. Anything else? The next meeting will be on Wednesday, October 17th. We have one case, 2018-10Z, 9500 Carlisle Avenue. And Commissioner Salvi was wondering if he was to take that case.
We'll figure that out tomorrow.
Okay, all right, good enough. Anything else? All right, if not, then this meeting of the Village of Skokie Zoning Board of Appeals is adjourned. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.